Got somebody on the other side? Good. Got volume? We're sitting the right way? Okay, there we go. Good evening, and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee meeting of the 11th of March, 2019. We are using Facebook live streaming on Facebook Live. There is no live interaction, but you may leave comments. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. It should also be noted that our video will now include closed captioning to make our meetings more accessible to all of our citizens. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting packages? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? We will be voting by electronic ballot on all matters except administrative. Please do not vote prior to the display of members. When the vote is input, the name of the member will change shading, indicating that the member has voted. The vote may be changed any time throughout the voting period. Select green for yes, red for no. You may select yellow to abstain, but your vote will be counted as a negative vote. The chair will call the voting closed, and the secretary will close the voting, displaying the results. The chair will then report the outcome of the vote. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? CEO Phillips, could you please take the roll call?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have full attendance this evening of council, as well as department heads. And to my left is Solicitor Matart, and over to my right is Recording Secretary Jennifer West. Thank you.
Thank you. You have before you the proposed agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? We have one addition to in-camera item 10A, land sale, and one deletion. Remove item 5D III, smoking bylaw report. If I could have a motion, please. Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Council Advisory Committee 11 February 2019 minutes have been provided in your package. Are there any errors or omissions to the minutes? If it is a no, the minutes are approved. If yes, there are errors, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red, and the approved minutes will be added to the electronic meeting file. It would appear it's a no, so therefore we have no errors. It's approved. Presentations to our presenter. Thank you for appearing this evening to make your presentation. You will be provided with 10 minutes to make your presentation, followed by questions from council. Your report is public record and will be considered by council. So we have a presentation by the Kentville business community, and it would appear that it's their president, Lee Morrison, who's going to make the presentation on the Center Square proposal. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, somebody's going to say something. Mayor Snow, Mark, staff, council, thanks very much for the opportunity. Zach was going to do this presentation, but he had a little slip on the ice this morning and wanted me to come instead. So I hope that he's doing better. Our proposal for the Center Square infrastructure is really not within the mandate of the Kentville business community, and we understand that. We have a section in our budget set aside that we can come with council's approval and potentially ask them to allow us access to the levy. All this money has previously been collected by the tax levy that the town takes care of for us. And through the number of events that we want to hold in town, we've found that the electrical at the Center Square is just inadequate. So whereas we have some room in our budget, we thought it would be an opportunity to take care of this issue once and for all, and to bring that area up to code. It's not that there's not enough electrical there, it's just that there's not enough outlets to plug into and also it's not up to code. We took the liberty of working with a town electrician, whoever the person that you folks work with, and instead of coming with one or two large panels, we found it was more cost-effective to come with several panels, and so the price with regards to the quote on the electrical upgrade has been hammered around to get it to that low number. So our ask is that council permit us to use an amount in our budget to upgrade the electrical facilities at Center Square for future events that we would like to hold.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Lee. We'll entertain questions from members of council now. Members of council, if you have any questions with regards to this report for Lee, Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Worship. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Kate.
So I think before you started, you prefaced it by saying that, upgrading the electrical panel in Center Square is probably more for the town to look after in terms of the capital expenditure. So I would say, I appreciate that you want to take that portion out of your budget, and I think that's very nice that you're offering to do that. Yeah. But I think probably it's my own thought around it is that it's probably something that we should look at in next year's budget or this coming year's budget. Yes. As part of one of our expenditures. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
As a comment to that, certainly we have room in our budget. It's
Sure.
just that section of our budget we're not able to spend. We need to come to you folks for approval.
Sure.
And whereas the timeline has passed for facades and things like that, we're in a bit of a situation where we, I guess, have a surplus, and if we, don't use it, we lose it. So that money has still been collected from a tax levy,
Sure.
but we just aren't having access to it. We thought we'd just try to help out, but I completely see your point as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Gerard, please.
Thank you, Worship. Hi, Lee. I'm just curious, have you, and I know that Catherine's on the Multicultural Fair committee, but is what I would like to do, if sort of do it one time and do it complete. So is this going to be adequate for both the one-time Multicultural Fair, but also the summer-long market?
Yes, it'll deal with the market, multicultural fair, and any other events to whatever size that we expect them to be in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Thank
it'll
you.
be a one-time thing.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell, please.
Hi, Lee.
Hi.
I reading through your proposal here, I think it's great that you want to take the initiative and do this. I know that when we get into budget deliberations, there's always lots of things that we'd like to get done for citizens in the town, and to have a group such as yourselves offer to assist, and you'll gain some benefit, as will citizens of the town gain benefit. I think it's commendable that your group would go ahead and do something like this. And again, I just think it's commendable, and I like the way that you laid it out, and obviously it's something that we need to do, and even from a safety standpoint, I think you said that's something that should be done. And so without holding back any other capital type of projects we'd like to do this year, I think it's wonderful that you're offering. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ballin, please.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to support my colleagues across the floor on this as well. I think it's great that you notice the deficit, I guess, in the infrastructure here, and you've got that vision to see that this needs to be done, and it's not a reaction to something else, but it's something that needs to be done. And I think if your group have determined that it should come out of your budget and you've got the funds there to use, I think that should be done. So I support this initiative, certainly. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Pulsford, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Lee.
Hi.
Thank you for this presentation. I think I definitely support getting this electrical upgraded in the Center Square. I remember last year during the Multicultural Fair, things kind of shut down. There were people running around trying to find other plugs, and and so on to make the event successful. So I certainly support whatever needs to be done to bring this up to a satisfactory level for us to put on functions, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Lee, thank you very much. This will come back before council as item under new business 8A. So if you feel like hanging around, we invite you to do so. If not, you can hit the road and watch us live on Facebook. Well, you've heard numerous opinions around the table and positions. So I'll leave it at that.
Great. As always, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, we're moving on to our department reports and recommendations. Directors will present their reports and will be accepted into record with one motion at the end of the reporting. Specific recommendations will be moved individually as necessary. Councillors may present questions and comments to the directors at the end of each presentation. Director Kroll, you're on first.
Thank you very much, Mayor Snow, and good evening to you all on this beautiful sunny evening when we can actually see what we're doing. Although I'm exhausted because I didn't sleep well last night. But if I happen to nod off, give me a little poke. Anyway, excuse me, I'm pleased to bring to you a number of items of a financial nature for the end of February, and we're looking firstly at the report from the Finance Department for the month ended February 28th. The benchmark at this month is 92% if everything was averaged evenly over the year. To the end of February, currently the revenue exceeds the average at 93.2% recorded. Taxation remains at 100% of the budget. Both the federal and provincial payments in lieu of tax have been received. We're looking at under services of other governments, 3/4 of the Kentville Police Service seconded officer is recorded, and 100% of the county's annual share for the library is recorded. Recreation services to the county will be billed at the end of the fiscal year, which is only 2 weeks away. Whoa! The sales of service, under that section, we have 10 months recorded for Kentville Police Services sales, and we have 11 months recorded for financial services provided to the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. And Recreation Services has billed 100% to KCA School for landscaping services. Under other revenue-owned sources, fine fees and permits continue to be above the guideline due to the collection of taxi licenses and provincial court fines and other fines and fees. We also have interest over the standard, and it includes interest on the town's bank accounts along with interest applied to outstanding receivables. And the return on investments right now contains the dividend payment from the water utility. The income from the perpetual fund will arrive the last week of March. Unconditional transfers record 75% of the provincial equalization payments and 100% of the Nova Scotia Power Grant and the Nova Scotia Power HST rebate. Under conditional transfers, we have monies recorded from the federal government related to cost sharing for recreation and planning summer staff, as well as the mentoring program that was conducted by the Kentville Police Service. 75% is billed to the province for the additional officer program, and 100% of the active living proceeds have arrived from the province. We've also received funds from various sources related that are conditional transfers. They total around $18,925, and they encompass summer students, policing services, recreation services, and some monies for the Visitor Information Center. Those were unbudgeted items. Under financing and transfer, all the transfers into from our various reserves have occurred for the year. On the expenditure side of the ledger, we're under the benchmark at 90.9% expended. Protective services, 100% of both area rate and the operating funds have been paid to the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department, and 100% of the funds have been paid to the Water Commission related to the hydrant area rate. Debt charges in all departments, this is debt interest charges in all departments, are 100% paid for the year. And emergency measures and other exceeds the benchmark as the annual expenditures related to building inspection and fire services arrived over budget. Under transportation services, public transit is reporting over the guideline. It reflects the billings that have been forwarded by King's Transit Authority, and it also includes the 2017-18 deficit position of KTA. Under environmental health services, this exceeds the benchmark but reflects the funding schedule set out by Valley Waste Resource Management Authority. Under Environmental Development Services, Planning and Zoning, it's over the guideline due to legal expenditures and training and conference expenditures. Other community development exceeds the benchmark due to payments to the Valley Wren and the Kentville business community. Under recreation programs, programs is over the guideline due to ongoing program delivery by the Recreation Department. And financing and transfers, the debt charge principal is 100% paid for the year. Under summary of outstanding taxes, which is your Schedule C, at February the 28th, 98.3% of the 2018-19 levy is collected. Last year, the figure was, or the percentage was 97.6%. Total property tax outstanding as at February the 28th, 2019 is $163,378, and you can see the comparative figure there for last year. This equates to 98.2% collected in total as compared to last year's figure of 97.3%. Under the Perpetual Investment Fund, this is for the month ended January 31st, 2019. You can see the breakdown between cost and market in the middle of page 4. The Statement of Reserves, which is Schedule F, indicates that interest paid into the fund is $179,583. Dividends paid into the fund total $170,923, and capital gains are $108,476. And you can see the comparison there for the year before. At January the 31st, management fees total $28,305 as compared to last year's figure of $29,086. We have Schedules G, number of pages there. This is the capital investment plan for 2018-19. At the end of February, the program records $1,841,436 is expended. The program is winding down for the year, and the program continues to be funded from a variety of sources. And Schedule H includes the details from the amounts due to and from the County of Kings, and there has been no change from the last report. And that is my report from the Finance Department for the month ended February 28.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Gerard, please.
Thank you, Worship. Under Schedule G, projects,
Yes.
we're about $1 million under budget right now. Do you project that we will continue to be quite a bit under budget, or?
We will be a great deal under budget, yes.
Okay. If I may, let's just see here. The county. I'm just wondering if we should be offsetting the amount of money that the county owes us by not paying our bills.
There are some bills that we have not paid to the county.
No. But my question is, should we not be paying our bills and go after the county in an appropriate way? Instead of saying you didn't pay us, we're not going to pay you.
We've recorded the amounts that the county has billed us. The funds have not been transacted. I believe it's been something that our legal counsel has basically told us that that's what we should do at this point in time.
Okay.
Mark may have more information on that.
No, I don't.
So it's okay for us just to say you owe us $1 million or whatever it is, you owe us X. We're just not going to pay you for the services that.
If I might, Your Worship, this would be a conversation. This be a conversation better had in camera, as opposed to what people's rights are when you're in a situation like this with another party.
Okay. May we add it to in camera?
Certainly.
Thank you.
That'll be legal.
Yes.
Item number 2, legal. Councillor Maxwell, please.
When I was going through this, Deb, there was just one thing I didn't understand, and I maybe should know, but what does CWIP stand for?
Construction work in progress, which means it's work that isn't complete at the end of the year, so we carry it forward to the next year.
Okay.
So you'll see it in the next year's, you'll see whatever it's, what that project is. There's a number of them. What that project is, you'll see it in next year's budget.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there being no further questions, you can move on to your projections, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and I'm very pleased to bring a better report than I did last month.
Yes.
We've got a change to the good of somewhere around $95,900 from my last report, which is phenomenal, kind of a shocker, and I'll tell you where it came from. Just in a nutshell, I hopefully you've had time to read the report. Revenue is increased in this report of $4,500. So the increase that I'm going to speak about didn't come from monies that came in such a fashion. Own source revenue has been moved upwards $3,700, and this relates to change in the tenants at the Calkin building. We have a rental there, and we've made some adjustments to tenants. So we booked $3,700 additional revenue in that section. Conditional transfers is up a small amount, $800, and it relates to unexpected funds that arrived for recreation cost sharing from another municipal unit. So all told, projected increase in revenue this month, $4,500. Expenditures are where we got our savings. We have expenditures decreased from my last report of $91,400, and it comes from a variety of sources. Under legislative, the expenses for the mayor and council have been moved downwards a further $3,500. I anticipate there'll be some savings in that section. General administration has moved down $14,300 from my last report. The majority of that comes from programs under general government, which is the savings in our projected sick leave accrual. We expect to save around $22,000 there, give or take. So I've projected a $22,000 underage in that particular line item. There have also been some small adjustments in remuneration and benefits. All told, the general administration is moving downwards from my last report, $14,300. So that adds to our projected surplus. Protection police is moved down $7,300. It's bits and pieces in a variety of spaces. Remuneration is down $2,100, basically savings in uniforms. Office is down $4,200 related to other expenditures. Communications is down $1,000 related to the maintenance account for communications. We have transportation down $8,300. Most of it comes from common services over $8,400. That's moved upwards. We have overtime moving up $7,800. Remuneration and benefits there related to the public works crew. And we have small tools and equipment have moved up slightly, $400. Bigger savings in the road transport section, that's moved down $16,700. Street repairs and street cleaning and traffic services are over budget, but we have some savings in sidewalk repairs and storm sewer maintenance that should give us some savings in that particular section. Environmental health is down $3,500 from last report. The other air pollution budget was not expended at all this year, so there's savings there. Environmental development is up $2,700 from last report. The planning and zoning section, which is the office expenditure, is down a small amount, $500 in office expenditures. Community development is up $3,100 related to expenses in what we call Kentville Futures expense, or River Street expenses. That's River Street lands. Shade trees found savings there of $1,000, and we have community economic development expenses. Promotions have moved upwards $1,100. Recreation section is down $3,100 from last report. Administration is saving $4,700, most of it in office expenses, various accounts there. The program section is up $3,300, and this is related to other programs in the Parks Division, which will be slightly over budget. Facilities have moved up $4,100, and the bulk of that comes from the arena section, where they found that there was a water error there, and the water billings have come in higher than expected. We have savings in the library, our own library, not the library, the provincial library, but our own library. Maintenance is down $5,800 in operations and maintenance. The big kicker for us is education. The Annapolis Valley Regional Center for Education discovered at the very end of February, or we got the notice at the very end of February, that they had made a mistake in the student count. It was incorrect for the year 2018-19. And this adjustment's been made, so it saved us $53,700 in this budget. So all told, we're looking at a projected surplus February 28th of $55,900.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Deb. Are there any questions with regards to this projection report? It looks like there are no questions. So moving on to our withdrawals from Town Capital Reserve, please.
Thank you very much. This is my second ask for withdrawal from capital reserve to finance, partially finance some of the capital acquisitions that have been built or obtained this year. The capital budget provides for partial funding from our town's capital reserve fund. Invoices have continued to arrive since my last report, and they require funding in order for us to complete the year. And you can see where I've got the budget from the reserve fund in the first column, what we actually drew on February the 26th. That was after it was ratified by council at the end of February for draw number 1. Draw number 2 request is a smaller amount, $9,771.18. It's going to partially fund the Visitor Information Center roof and whatnot upgrades that they made there this year, and is going to give us some funds to pay for the Belcher Street sidewalks. Some bits and pieces have come in there, and the police vehicle was slightly over target, so that also has been added to the budget. So we're looking at a withdrawal. My recommendation reads, if I can turn the page, that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the attached resolution be approved for withdrawal of $9,771.18 from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve general allocation to partially fund several capital acquisitions as denoted above during the year 2018-19. And after this approval, the resolution must appear before Town Council for ratification.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that Council Advisory approve the resolution for withdrawal of $9,771.18 from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation to partially fund several capital acquisitions as denoted above during the year 2018-19 to be ratified at the March 25th, 2019 Council meeting. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the resolution for withdrawal of $9,771.18. Something's happening technically here that...
I can't put it on a big screen tonight.
I
Is that a deal breaker?
wonder, it's not, your tablet's not on there, Deb, by any chance? I just making sure. From a switch. No, you're not on there. See what that does. You could always turn your surface around. That'll probably pick it up. There you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
Okay.
Go ahead, the vote is open.
All right, thank you. The vote is now closed. The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to your renewal of a temporary borrowing resolution, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Snow. This is the renewal for a temporary borrowing resolution. It's denoted as 16/17-03 Robinson Building. The background is the attached temporary resolution will expire April the 12th, 2019, and must be replaced with a current authorization in order to maintain the short-term financing related to the above-noted land mass. I attached the renewal of the temporary borrowing resolution, which was provided by Nova Scotia Department of Municipal Affairs. This resolution requires Council's authorization before it is forwarded in triplicate to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for ministerial consent. Once all approvals are in place, the town can continue to borrow on a short-term basis. When the land is sold, the short-term borrowing will be retired with the proceeds of the sale. Any residual loan would be retired either with capital reserve monies or long-term borrowing, depending on the amount of the net proceeds of any sale. My recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that it authorize the renewal of the temporary borrowing resolution noted below and forward to Council for ratification. Following this event, the document must be sent to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization. And the issue is TBR 16/17-03. The purpose is Robinson Building, and the amount is $172,000.
Thank you. Thank you. Seconder? Oh, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the council advisory authorize the renewal of the temporary borrowing resolution number 161703 Robinson Building for $172,000 to be ratified at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Following approval, it will be sent to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization. Is there any discussion? Councillor Gerard, please.
Thank you, Worship. Deb, the 172, will that finish the amount borrowed, or is that just the portion for 2019-20?
That is the amount that we have outstanding on the Robinson
okay,
line.
that's what's okay.
Councillor Ballin, please.
Thank you, Worship. Just looking at the package, why is there a $10,000 difference between now and a year ago?
Because we
Looking at-
paid down 5% of the principal
Okay.
in this year's budget.
I didn't think it was an error, so, okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is that we authorize the renewal of the temporary borrowing resolution number 1617-03 for the Robinson Building, $472,000 to be ratified at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Following approval, it will be sent to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for the provincial authorization. All those in favor? Voting is now closed. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And moving on to your next blanket resolutions, and we will do those as two motions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I'm bringing resolutions, what we call blanket resolutions, because we really don't know how the year end is going to end up for either the sanitary sewer area service or the town of Kentville operating fund. So I'm asking to have monies available, if need be, so that we can withdraw that money and set up the receivable at the end of our accounting year, so that we don't post a deficit at the end of 2019, March 31st, 2019. So the request is made to position the town to offset any deficit positions as at March 31st, 2019, which could occur in either the town's operating fund and or the town's sanitary sewer area service. As I mentioned before, we're at the very beginning of the process. We really can't guarantee what our surplus or deficit position will be until sometime in mid-May of 2019. If the town of operating fund is in a deficit position after the completion of the year-end process, the deficit figure is the first line item of our 2019-20 budget, operating budget, as municipalities are not permitted to carry deficit positions. A deficit position will also affect the town's financial condition index for the year 2018-19. The sanitary sewer area service also will be recording a large expenditure at the end of the yearly financial process, and this needs to be offset with an injection from the sanitary sewer operating reserve. The town can eliminate deficits by the passage of blanket resolutions to transfer from the town's operating reserve and or the town's sanitary sewer operating reserve to offset any year-end deficit positions in either of the above noted entities. The town's operating reserve contains $650,452, of which $283,166 is for any operating purpose. The sanitary sewer area service operating reserve fund contains $333,670 for any sanitary sewer operating purpose. So my recommendation it's twofold, that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee to approve a blanket resolution for possible withdrawal from the Town of Kentville operating reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit should one occur at March 31st, 2019, after all year-end transactions are quantified. These funds would only be transacted if the town was facing a current operating deficit end of year. And further, I recommend to Council Advisory Committee to approve a blanket resolution for withdrawal from the Town of Kentville Sanitary Sewer Area Service Operating Reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit should one occur at March 31st, 2019, after all year-end transactions are quantified. These funds would be transacted only if the sanitary sewer area service was facing a current operating deficit end of year. And I just wanted to mention, I didn't mention before, and I should have, that our snow removal budget is about 87% expended. We have over-expended our materials and supplies account right at this point in time, and there are bills that probably will be coming in for the last snowfall last week. Our the salaries section part of that whole section is about 51% expended, but it's only to the end of January 2019. We still have February and March to record for the salaries there, so I'm expecting that we're going to be slightly over budget in our snow removal budget. Hopefully we don't have any more snow. I looked forward to the weather, and it looks like it's going to be more pleasant than it was last Monday. Anyway, who knows what we're going to get at the end of the day, but I expect that we're going to be slightly over budget in snow removal. Just want to position ourselves so that we don't, we have a $55,000 surplus now. I can't guarantee that it's going to sit there at the end of March, which is only 2 weeks away.
All right, well, we'll take your good weather to the bank. So we are looking at the recommendation that the council advisory approve a blanket resolution for possible withdrawal from the town of Kentville operating reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit should one occur at March 31st, 2019, after all year-end transactions are quantified. The funds would be transacted only if the town was facing a current operating deficit at end of year. Thank you. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council advisory approve the blanket resolution for possible withdrawal from the town of Kentville operating reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit should one occur at March 31st, 2019. Is there any discussion? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Deb, is there ever any ceiling put on this? And I understand we can't run a deficit, but would it be smart to say over a certain amount, something has to come back to council?
That's entirely up to you, although my recommendation would be that we don't want to post a deficit.
No, I understand that, but if something catastrophic happens and it's going to be $650,000.
Oh, dear God.
No, absolutely, but would it be smart to put a Mark?
I guess I don't foresee anything catastrophic happening between now and the end of the year.
I guess we would be communicating with you if something's catastrophic. I'm just questioning here out loud. Obviously, you're looking for you're a little bit concerned with the blanket authorization.
Yeah.
But we cannot post a deficit.
No,
so
absolutely.
I don't like to say it is what it is, but it is that way. So would you prefer?
If I might, it's limited by the amount that you're able to get at as well. So on the first recommendation...
200 and some odd thousand.
Yeah. So you only have the 200 and some odd thousand
That we
dollars
can
in any
access.
event.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Question?
All right. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, we have a further recommendation, the council advisory approve a blanket resolution for possible withdrawal from the town of Kentville sanitary sewer area service operations reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit should one occur at March 31, 2019, after all year-end transactions are quantified. These funds would be transacted only if the sanitary sewer area was facing a current operating deficit end of year, to be ratified at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Motion, please.
Moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the council advisory approve a blanket resolution for possible withdrawal from the town of Kentville sanitary sewer area service operations reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on approval of the blanket resolution, and voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Your Worship, just to add a little bit of comfort, and you've said that in your words there, this is a recommendation to council. So as we approach the council meeting, we'll have a better sense of where we are financially come year end. So if there's something catastrophic on the horizon, we can prepare you for that at the council meeting. If it's as the director is projecting, then it's what we know. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Director Kroll. All right, Director Gentlemen, it's all yours. Planning and Development, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Snow. Good evening, Council. For the month of February, 7 development permits were issued for a building valuation of $735,000. This brings us to a year total of just over $1 million in building valuation. We've had 5 civic addressing changes, no subdivision applications this month, nor any dangerous or unsightly premises calls. Canada's summer, jobs grant application has been submitted for summer students, and prepared a draft planning advisory committee policy that we'll be speaking about shortly. The rezoning application from Open Arms and John Atfeld was denied by council on February 25th, 2019. Registered letters advising the applicant and property owner of the right to appeal council's decision to the URAB was mailed out. And on Friday, we were notified that an appeal was submitted, and further notified today by the UARB of the upcoming process. So we'll be talking about that shortly as well. So the decision has been appealed. Staff has been working with Goose Cap Curling Club on the solution of their encroachment that was brought forward to you last month with a letter from Goose Cap asking for some help with it. Well, we were looking into what we might be able to do. It's become obvious that the cost to close the road at this point and give the land potentially to the applicants just kind of a little more expensive than what Goose Cap had anticipated. We're still working with them, and we've also looked at the opportunity, or the option of developing a encroachment bylaw whereby we might be able to allow encroachments in certain areas on street right-of-ways, but that's still in the works. Lastly, staff has been working with Public Works to document the age and condition of the town's infrastructure, including water, sewer, curbs, and asphalt, and that's all being mapped and digitized. We still haven't heard anything more on the KCA lands, and other than general mapping and GIS support and day-to-day operations and drop-ins, that is my report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions on this report for the director? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you. How are things at Allen's Motel coming along?
Fine. They have their permit for...
Have we done any site visits? And the only reason I ask was I talked to a neighbor last week who said there was garbage blowing around
Oh, I haven't heard anything.
in his yard. Okay. And I didn't think that you had. It was, okay.
I thought you were referring to the change. Anyways, no, I haven't heard anything, so I can go and have a look.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, moving on to your next report, Planning Advisory Committee Policy.
Okay, so the origin came, a request for a decision to reenact the Planning Advisory Committee was submitted by Councillor Gerard and discussed at February CAC's meeting. Section 200 of the Municipal Government Act allows a municipality by policy to establish a Planning Advisory Committee, or PAC. The purpose of a PAC is to advise council in the preparation or amendments of planning documents. These documents include a municipal planning strategy, land use bylaw, and subdivision bylaw. The committee may as well advise in the preparation of a development agreement. The CAO has indicated that he is prepared to endorse the establishment of a planning advisory committee so long as the committee is efficient, sticks to issues requiring the decision of council, and does not negatively affect the timing associated with the decision-making process. With this direction, the attached draft PAC policy has been drafted for your review. In terms of budget implications, there really wouldn't be much other than the $800 honorarium fees for non-council members and $2,000 to $3,000 miscellaneous, which generally go towards conferences and meeting expenses. So I'm sure everybody had a look at the draft policy, but to summarize it, there are the definitions of what PAC, the general layout of the policy, definitions of what the PAC is, the responsibilities, and primarily what we focused on was that council would appoint the members of the Planning Advisory Committee, and the Planning Advisory Committee would review and provide recommendations to council concerning the preparation of or amendments to the town's planning documents, including the MPS, the LUB, and the subdivision bylaw, and any discussion about development agreements. The membership would consist of 3 members of town council and 4 members of the public, who would be residents of the town of Kentville. And because the purpose of this committee, or what's proposed to be the purpose of this committee, is only to review amendments as they come in, we suggested having meetings set up 14 days before, upon receipt of an application for an amendment to the MPS or the LUB or rezoning, rather than having monthly meetings scheduled when we generally don't have that many amendments throughout the year. So meetings will be set as needed. And I think with regards to the rest of the sections, they're pretty standard in terms of committee member committees, in terms of membership and having to attend the meetings. Otherwise, you have to provide notice of not being there. And things like that. Quorum, what constitutes a quorum. Yeah, I think that's the main emphasis of the draft bylaw or policy. So if council is in agreement or are wishing to reenact the Planning Advisory Committee, I would suggest the council adopt the attached Planning Advisory Committee policy.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew, you had a question?
I just have a couple of questions. Having read the document, and I can't see anything really necessarily bad about it from my perspective, but your vantage point is a little bit different, or the director's vantage point is a little bit different, rather. I just wonder, does this hinder a respective director, because this is not just to do with planning, although that would be a big area. Does this hinder their ability to make recommendations, number one? So this is a 2 or 3 part question, if I may. And also, who decides, and I quote this it says in preparation of a development agreement. So who decides if the PAC will advise? Who makes that decision if that's going to happen? Do you want me to stop with those 2 questions? Because I have more.
Maybe 2 at a time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so I'm not sure what kind of questions you are, your first question, what kind of questions you would like to be able to provide at a PAC level. But I think, at least at this time, as a result of discussion last month, and in consultation with the CAO, we narrowed it down to specific amendments or specific requirements relating to adoption or amendments of development agreements, planning strategy, land use bylaw, and the subdivision bylaw. All those planning documents that require approval of council would first be vetted through PAC.
That's good clarity. Thank you
Okay.
on that. Okay, so that's set out. That's determined. I guess the other thing is, what I don't want to do is, I know, unfortunately, we have as council at times questioned some of our department heads, some of our directors, and I worry that this, and this is kind of subjective, but I worry that this may may give the impression that we're saying we're not trusting you to make these decisions. I worry that it gives that message, and I hope that's not the message it's sending. Okay, so here's my, that said, please explain the following. Reports and recommendations would be vetted through the advisory committee versus initial presentations to council at CAC. What does that mean?
Where are you seeing that? Okay.
I can't reference the point in the document, but it's
With what I
cut and paste,
just
so
said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
that's
it's not, yeah, right.
so that is the answer to that. Is it is specified?
Right.
Okay.
The
All right.
purpose of the committee is specified.
All right.
Yeah.
So you and other directors still have a job to do.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just one extra committee. It'd be the same thing, it'd be very similar
Yeah.
to meeting with CAC with an application coming before them for a DA.
Yeah.
It would just go through the
Okay.
Planning Advisory Committee first with some kind, discussion and input
Yeah. Okay.
from that committee.
No, very much appreciated. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, Councillor Andrew, one of the keys to this is that this is a council advisory committee. So they advise council. They do not advise
The
the
director.
directors. The director brings the report to them,
Yeah.
and then they go through it, and they would be advising, sending us a report,
Okay.
and presenting to us as well.
That was my concern, is that
Yeah.
we as non-experts would be in a position to kind of stifle the work of the experts. So.
Yeah, no,
Okay, thank
no.
you.
Your worship.
Go ahead, certainly.
But there could be debate, and
Yes.
the advisory committee could be advising something that is not in alignment with the director. It could happen.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
That's
It'd be very
the
similar
authority that
to
you
a debate of any application that would come forward to council or CAC for any type of rezoning or plan amendment. There's room for debate. It's just another set of eyes, I think, to provide that kind of, exchange with me and the planning department as we move forward on any application.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bev, the section there, 5.0, where it says the committee, 3 members of town council and 4 members of the public who are residents of the town.
Yeah.
When the town had a PAC before, was there ever any more meat around the residents of the town who participated in the committee?
No.
Yeah.
No, it was residents of the town.
Okay. My own opinion, obviously it's my own, I would like to see something when I'm assuming we advertise for this, similar to that we do the other committees.
Yeah, council would, yeah.
Right,
Yep.
yeah. Just maybe we could have some other attributes that folks would have, like whether it's maybe they have some GIS skills, maybe they have planning background, maybe engineering, but just something that brings more to the table in
I think
terms.
the MGA sets it out that it has to be, the solicitor might.
That just plain, you can't put any, like, preferred maybe preferred qualifications isn't the right word. But I mean, if you can't, under the MGA, then you can't.
We can certainly look into that and clarify
I'm just
that, but
asking,
it was
yeah.
always my understanding that it was a resident.
And that's, and
Yeah,
full
yeah.
stop.
Yeah. Much of planning has to do with issues that perhaps the person on the ground has a better appreciation of.
Sure.
And so skill sets for PAC may not be the same sort of skill sets that you're looking for finance and that sort of thing, for example.
Yeah, sure.
right?
Okay.
So ultimately, as a council, you decide who sits on these committees, and you
Sure,
can
okay.
decide what sort of skill sets you're looking for.
Depending on
but
who
I'd
applies.
suggest that this is the type of committee that you may simply be interested in people who are cognizant of the types of issues that development brings and come to them with open mind. This committee can also engage the public without dealing through council. So often the initial meeting around a development may be hosted by PAC. So the
Okay,
right.
okay.
So the planner, in this case Bev, the planner and PAC might host the initial public information meeting.
Okay.
They are often engaged in that public process that prior to council sending something for first reading.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, and I have, I guess I have one comment. From our last meeting, Councillor Pulsifer had pointed out several towns that had policy on PACs, and I've had an opportunity to go through and advise or review those. And I guess I like your first, in discussions, you said that the draft PAC policy has been drafted for review. So I guess what I would like to suggest is that we take time to review it, to ensure that it says what we want it to say, and that it's in line with our current policy, I guess, directions, and or policy formats, and that it's not in conflict with any existing policies, and that perhaps red lines to this draft could be sent to Jennifer in time for the April CAC meeting. Well, I don't know if we want to table it, because we're going to be we're the ones doing the work.
Yes.
So how about if we accept, because I accept this policy, this draft policy for review? Is there anything wrong with that motion?
I was
Oh, go ahead.
I was thinking that perhaps you would simply accept it as part of a report when you accept all the reports.
Okay. And then we can review it and do what we want. And so your homework is due for the April CAC meeting. Does that suit everybody? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. If I can direct Lynn. So maybe, Lynn, I'm not sure how many different spots that you looked at with PACs, or... Okay.
It was various towns.
Okay.
Through
Through the
the province.
province of, okay.
Oakville, Windsor,
Okay.
Bridgewater,
Surrounding, okay.
Yarmouth.
Yarmouth,
Okay.
quite a few of the towns larger than ours, or, about-
Were they similar pretty much in nature?
Well, I didn't go through them all.
Sure. No, no.
I just noted they had them, I looked it up on their
Right.
websites
Okay.
and saw that there was,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay.
If I might, so there's a lot of planning advisory committees across the province. Some have more responsibility. I'm taking, I drafted this in the manner of what was discussed at February CAC with regards to, direction that I had gotten from CEO and his comments and his support for the, what he would support a PAC for.
Okay.
So.
And I guess where I was going with this, Director Gentleman, is not so much to change the sense of what you've put, but, for example, what's the process? So something would go to PAC, and what do they do with it, and how do they get it to council is more, I guess, when I look at procedures, it's the procedures for that committee. And if you look at Kings County, they say that they do something and then it goes to council, and then council could assign them other tasks, but it's just that straight line from PAC to council. And it's just to get that on paper, because we might know what we're doing, but if we look at the citizens that we appoint, it's nice for them to have a piece of paper that they can hang their hat on and say, this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm doing it. Okay, Councillor Bolland, you
Thank you,
had a
Worship.
question.
But is the process not going to be any different than, say, our police commission, where they have a recommendation that comes to CAC? They fleshed it out and it went through their filter, so to speak, and it comes to us. I don't see and the task here is a reactionary sort of committee that it may only meet once or twice a year if an application comes in. It's not going to be a monthly, like what used to be 3 years ago. So I don't want to make things complicated that I don't think it needs to be, but
No,
it's my opinion. But-
you're right, and there's no intent to make this complicated. But at the same time, when we're getting a recommendation from a committee, it should be in writing so that we know what the recommendation of the committee was, and then it becomes part of our documentation and our record.
And I guess that's the way it's always been set up. So we've had our meetings, and then the chair and the committee would make a recommendation, and that would be put forward in a recommendation and a report to CAC, to go on to CAC, and then council.
Right, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just to detail that in this document. because it doesn't, if you look at the procedures, all I'm saying is that under procedures 6.0, it's what happens once they've done their work, where does it go? And then all I'm saying is that there's nothing in here that says when the PAC reviews something, where that information goes. It tells them what their responsibility is to council concerning they will review and provide recommendations to council, to the town's municipal bylaws. But it's just to get them focused in what they're doing. And if you look at Wolfville's, or even Halifax actually has a block diagram of how the process goes. So I guess it's just getting a little bit more detail in the procedures, so not to complicate it or to make this an onerous job. But
would 4.2 not satisfy that? The PAC will review and provide recommendations to council concerning the preparation or amendments to the town's planning strategy, land use bylaw, subdivision bylaw, or development agreement.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah.
Councillor Gerard.
I'd still like to take a month and do some more research on PAC.
And I think our
From
solicitor has told us that with acceptance of this report,
Yeah.
is that we can come back on April, and if we're not finished, we can come back in May. But it will come back to CAC.
Okay.
So we're doing a review of this draft.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you. All right, thank you, Director, on that one. And you're moving on to your next... Oh, no, sorry, that's it. Community Economic Development.
Your Worship, let's bring this report up. Until the screen is in high def. There we go. The Calkin Building is being listed for sale with DeVries, Barnard and Associates. The sell package will be posted on the town's website. I think that's happening like tomorrow. Folks were around the building today, so the word is out and the sign will soon be posted. With respect to that process, we did seek proposals from at least 2 other vendors on the price of being a commercial realtor, so these folks were successful. The planning department student from Acadia, Leanne Martin, has been in place since February 19th. She's been shadowing the Community Economic Development Officer, as well as attending other meetings and projects that we're involved in. KBC held their strategic planning session on March 6th, where the current plan was workshopped and revised. The town document, the new document, is now with the facilitators for finalization and will be shared with council once it is camera ready. And I think we could thank those that were there in attendance. I heard it was a pretty productive day. KBC's facade program, round 4, is now open. Applications are being accepted until April 1st. This program has been modified, and there's a new facade manual document available on the KBC website if you're interested in that detail. Planning meeting for the 2019 tourism season at the VIC took place in February. Looking at dates and staffing and those folks. Susan Carey, our manager, is returning, and they are looking for a visitor counselor, a new part-time visitor counselor. Website project, work on the back end of the website project is ongoing. Blaze has presented, Blaze is the name of the company, right? Has presented the design drafts, and the team has provided direction back for tweaking. Kentville Farmers Market is searching for a new indoor home, and initial meetings have taken place with other not-for-profit groups who may be interested in partnering. In the meantime, the market will enjoy its regular outdoor season in the Center Square from mid-May to mid-October. The next event in the Market Workshop Series is a mandala painting class taking place in April. Projects makes note there of the manufacturers for the gateway sign. Oh yeah, okay, right. Change of manufacturers. So we've had an issue there with the company that was assigned that gateway project, and they've essentially said we can't do the job. So we're repositioning who we have do that work. 2 of the 3 Center Square entrance signs are completed. The business park signs on the 101 have been installed and look good, look great. Development of the new community improvement program is in research and planning phase. Tourism, Kentville will be joining ABCC and other municipal units in the Valley businesses at the Saltscape East Coast Expo in April. That group has met and are planning what that booth and presentation will look like. And then some of the highlights of events and activities of the coordinator are listed there for your review. That would be the report.
Are there any questions? Councillor Pulsford, please.
Thank you. I was wondering what the community improvement program consists of. What is that? It's mentioned a couple times, and I just wasn't sure what that entailed.
Good question. I'm not sure I have the details on that. Director Gentleman? No? Okay. Well, we'll have to report back to you.
Okay. And the tourism inventory update?
That's for the leaflets.
Maybe that goes hand.
That's for the leaflets. So they used to be able to go to Halifax and collect all of the brochures from a single place, but that place is being renovated. So basically, we have to go out and collect brochures from each individual service provider in Nova Scotia.
Instead of them being delivered to our doorstep.
Nova Scotia Tourism works for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're, all of the tourism bureau operators are collaborating, especially here in the Valley. They've all gotten together, and especially this group, the Saltscape group. So they've got a plan of attack.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you. And the website project, is there any end in sight for that, or?
Jennifer might be able to comment on that. She's on that team.
So they are moving along. We're getting content back from our copywriter. He's rewriting a lot of, if not most, of the text in a lot of the sections. So we have to, every time they produce a section, we need to review it and make sure that it's accurate. You know, they're taking liberties in some places, which are really fantastic and creative, and in other areas they can't take those kinds of liberties. So they might have a sense of some of that place where that's okay. So we have to really be careful with their content editing. The design is ongoing, and I would say within a month we should be very close to being finished.
Oh, good, great. Okay, thank you.
Don't quote me.
No, I won't.
Public meeting?
Off the record.
Online?
Yes, off the record.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, Councillor Pulsford asked about the website. I was going to ask the same question. But the other question I had, the cafe is still slated to open April 1?
April 1, I believe, is still the target, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Some of her preparation was delayed a little bit, but
I had, a
I don't
couple
think she's deviated from
folks have asked,
her anticipated open.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to Parks and Recreation. Director Bedingfield, the floor is yours.
Worship, I could be excused for just 1 minute to grab my phone. I'm feeling a little bit of withdrawal, and sometimes I get messages during the meeting. But if you wish, the director could continue. Thank you.
He just doesn't want to listen to what you have to say.
Listen, story of my life.
And look how small he left your screen, so... Yeah. You know you're the most important one here, so just go ahead and just dazzle us.
The under facilities, we all know that it's Deb. The Kentville Arena is in its final 2 weeks of operation for the season, which is crazy.
No way.
To me. I know the ice is gonna come out soon enough. So we encourage everyone to head out and take advantage of our many public skates throughout the week. Again, the schedule is available on the website, or you can call the arena phone. The parks and trails are open as per usual. Of course, recently we had probably the best snowfall of the season, and now it's all melting. But we've during that snowfall, we had enough to be able to groom our trails. So we groomed the Harvest Moon Trail, and we've added the track behind the Credit Union Complex, and if possible, the Gorge. and Miners Marsh. We groom, just so folks know, for both classic and cross-country skiing for those of you that do ski, as well as snowshoeing. And recently we started an awareness campaign reminding our community of proper trail etiquette, asking snowshoe users to stay out of the ski tracks, which is just kind of one of those things, if you're a skier, it drives you crazy when someone has stepped on your tracks. We've had a number of people send their pictures actually using our newly groomed trails this past weekend, so it's been really great, and the Halifax Cross Country Ski Club has reached out and thanked us, and they've been sending members down our way all the time. So that's great. Under programs and operations, our Girls Outdoor Adventure Club is currently our only after-school program and will have its final session after March break. Our staff have been working with the Annapolis Valley Regional Library to help start a program that sees adapted recreation equipment available through loan in the Annapolis Valley. I think I've reported on this before. The equipment will be held at the Berwick headquarters, and community members will be able to access this equipment through their local library branches, which is great. It's expanded so that each branch has the ability to do it. It just needs to be picked up the same day. And of course, the recreation offices throughout the valley are willing to help out with this in any way possible. Our summer planning is well underway. We've been accepting resumes for our summer staff, and we'll begin the interview process in the coming weeks. The Flying Squirrel program continues to be on the third Saturday of every month at the Kentville Ravine. And our indoor walking program at the Credit Union Recreation Complex, we've been taking some numbers and sees close to 70 participants daily during the week, which is up quite a bit. When we used to have it free Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, we saw those numbers, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays, when you had to pay a toonie, it dropped substantially, so it's great to see those numbers turn out 5 days a week. And then the other program that we've started taking numbers for is SHAFT, which stands for Super Happy Active Family Fun Time. It also continues to be very popular, and we just got the numbers in, and the average turnout on the weekends for those is actually 101 participants, which is a big number, and that of course is thanks to a facility access grant that we received through the province of Nova Scotia. And a reminder that the Walk with the Dock happens the first Tuesday of every month, 12 to 1 p.m. at the Credit Union Rec Complex. Under capital project update, we're continuing to work at the Memorial Pool House. You've seen in the budget that some of that will be carried over as we continue to do that into the new year. And the Bona Vista project has been delayed again to the weather and frozen ground, but they're waiting patiently, and hopefully with more days like this, we'll be able to move forward. Public engagement and community events. We're getting into event season. If you come into our department, you'll see Ashley with the frenzy trying to get everything organized. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of what's going on. Of course, this past weekend we finally were able to have our weekend of winter because we had a real winter. And we felt safe with having people at the park. So Friday night was our sledding party, and Saturday was a scavenger hunt. We partnered with Annapolis Valley Scavenger Hunts. And thanks to everyone who came out to support those. We have the Leadership Tea, which is on March 27th, the Provincial Volunteer Awards on April 1st, the Kentville Volunteer Awards on April 6th, and the Home Show on April 12th to the 14th, so just to have those in your calendars. Under meeting and events, not much to report on there. That's too exciting. Yeah, just confirming nothing's exciting. And under council related, the Regional Recreation Needs Assessment is in its final stage of community consultation. The community survey was released by all partners and will close on March 15th. Because our department likes to be competitive, we issued a little bit of a challenge to see which community was going to have the highest return rate on surveys, and I'm pleased to say at this moment in time, Kentville's winning. I probably won't report it if we lose, but that's how that goes. So the more you promote it, the better it is. We're hoping to get 1,000 responses. It closes, I believe, on the 15th. Once the final draft of the report is complete, there will be a final presentation to the public happening in mid-April, and that will most likely happen at the Louis Millet Center. And then the final report will be submitted by the end of April. So you've noticed we've had to push things a little bit, and part of that is because of weather, and part of that is availability of our stakeholders for interviews. Under the active transportation plan, it's also nearing completion. That has had to be pushed back a little bit, but Upland is working feverishly on trying to get that report done to us, sooner than later, so that we can review the draft and then have the final report also closer to the end of April. And that's my report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the director with regards to her report? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's not really with regards to anything in your report, but it's more around the street naming.
Did you ever hear anything back from Diversity Kings?
No.
Okay, thank you.
What does HNM stand for in the unexciting part?
Oh, that's the Homeless No More Committee, HNM.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, if there's any acronyms, let me know. I love acronyms. CBRA, Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. CCH, Community... No, it's okay.
What's the Circus Circle?
Wouldn't you?
Are you leaving us for the big ring?
I'm not flexible enough. Circus Circle, that's an initiative, community initiative that they're interested in coming to town. It's actually a really exciting thing. The background is that in Halifax there's an initiative called Circus Circle, and it actually partnered with the downtown business community on Spring Garden Road, and there were a number of youth that were, or I shouldn't say just youth, but persons that were homeless on the street, and the business community got together and they wanted to decide what to do about it. And so they partnered with a local group to fund them and teach these kids, get them off the street and teach them actually circus skills. And they actually put on a circus and they develop all these skills through the art of circus work. And that's the initiative that business group got together to work with that. So they're looking at running something similar in the town of Kentville, but we're just in preliminary talks right now. But it's a really great program. Yeah, they actually presented to VRCDA, which is the Valley Recreation Coordinators and Directors Association, in December. And we got to try a whole bunch of circus skills.
Okay, thank you very much.
I will not quit this job for that job, because I wasn't good at it at all.
We'll join the circus.
Chief, you're up.
Hello, everyone. I remembered my glasses tonight, so we're in a good way. So I'll start with my monthly report and go through the stats. The auxiliary hours are down. Again, I would say that is cold weather. That is keeping people home in their warm living rooms as opposed to out in our cold police cars. Training hours are down to 64. We actually had to cancel a number of courses due to staffing issues. And the training is 3 members went into road to mental readiness training with the RCMP. And then actually the deputy went in for the supervisor level of that, and that is it's a program actually developed through the military, and it's around recognizing when your coworkers are in distress from a mental side, so intervening before it becomes a bigger issue. Vehicle checks were up, 185 cars were stopped. Warning tickets were up to 63. SOT tickets also up to 46. Foot patrol hours up to 108. It shows 102, but I missed one person's. Criminal code charges were down a little bit. Calls for service were up by 55, 60. That's actually probably the SOTs because they all go on the system, so it isn't that the regular calls for service went up, it's just the motor vehicle infractions being put on there. And the mental health calls were fairly consistent at 11. So as I say, we sent members into road to mental readiness training. One of our members who's seconded to CISNS was sent away for 6 days of training with them. And we participated in a KCA lockdown drill on February the 19th. So there were 3 members working that day, and all 3 went up and helped the school with that. There's a few meetings there, nothing exciting. In the other, we promoted Daryl Brown. He was acting inspector for the last 3 years. We decided to bring Kentville in line with the rest of the province as far as having a deputy chief. So he was actually given the rank of deputy chief last Thursday. We have 2 new auxiliary officers who have been in and fitted for their uniforms. They're not ready to be out there yet. We hope to have them trained and ready for Apple Blossom. As a female and a male, I won't give you their names quite yet until we have them all outfitted and ready to go. And 2 new temporary officers have also started with us, Constable Devin White and Olivia McPhee. So I understand Devin was out on the block today. You may have seen him. And his field trainer is Marty Smith, who says that he loves the block and he loves being out talking to people. So that's great. Hopefully we'll see lots of him over the next, they're here month to month. He, however, is replacing somebody who's off until probably June. So he should be here for 3 to 4 months. So hopefully we'll see lots of him. Sergeant Marty Smith, if you're following the Facebook or the Twitter, is doing the polar plunge in 2 weeks, and he is asking for funds. And today he crossed over the $1,000 in donations. So we thank the people at Kentville for being so generous, because he's going head to head with 2 Halifax officers who have 400,000 members of the public to help them, and he's got 6,500 here in Kentville, and he's holding his own. So. I did a talk to a women's group in Wolfville, the CFUW, I'm not sure what that stands for, around cannabis. And then last Friday, Chris Burke and I attended Landmark East in Wolfville with Dr. Bauer from Valley Regional Hospital and spoke to the in-service day around youth and cannabis again. So the cannabis circuit continues. For our calls for service for the month, I'm not going to get into that. If there's any questions about any of those, you can ask me, but I have the year in review, so that's going to take up some time, so I'll just kind of say Glenn is back to 30 hours a week now, so he's 5 days a week. He's almost full hours. He's worked 6 hours a day now. So you can see that his numbers are starting to go back up. And he did 207 warnings, 30 charges. Smoking warning seems to be down. Again, I'd say that's the cold. People are inside and not out on the street, so that's good. I will say it's very good to have Glenn back. I noticed that the parking was beginning to be quite a problem. So now that he's back and people are seeing him there, that will quickly adjust back to a reasonable level. So, any questions on any of that stuff?
Nope, moving on to your annual report, please.
So I sent this out to everybody last week, and then there was a suggestion that I bring this forward. So I actually am required under the Nova Scotia Police Act to do a yearly review. So this is our stats for the last year. So a wise man once told me, if you own the good stuff, you have to own it when it's bad as well. But this year I get to own the good stuff. So our calls were down 600 from 2017 to 2018. So we dropped to just under 3,000 calls for service. Crimes against persons, so that is things like assaults, sexual assaults, threats, harassment, so anything that's against you as a person, went from 139 in 17 to 137. So stayed pretty consistent. And I'll break that down into a couple categories. So assaults. So assaults on a person went from 77 down to 72, which if you consider there's 365 days in a year, we're doing pretty well. We go for days on end without any kind of assaults on a person. Threats went from 36 to 32. Threats tend to come around domestics, so I would suggest that a lot of those are as a result of domestic disturbances. Not to say that there aren't sometimes other threats, but a lot of those are in the domestic situations. Crimes against property, so that's thefts, that's break and enters, mischiefs, anything property related. Again, fairly consistent, went from 244 up 3 to 247, so nothing dramatic there.
Chief, would that be a vehicle break-in as well? Sorry.
Yes,
okay.
It would.
Thank
Yep.
you.
So break and enters were a little concerning. We doubled. We went from 12 to 23, but I will say 2016 had an equal number to what we have this year. So perhaps last year was just a really good year. And of those break and enters, 8 were in businesses and 10 were into homes. Then there were a couple other unlawfully in dwellings that fall into that category. So again, nothing dramatic. Really, that's very good for a fairly residential area. Frauds are up. I would say we will continue to see this. This is the world of the internet and text and phone frauds. So this is really going to be around a public education, and we just need to keep telling our people not to fall for it, to hang up, to delete the emails, and not to respond. And that is happening all across. That's not just us. The thefts, it went from 103 down to 87. So we were down 16. This includes the motor vehicle. So this is your theft from motor vehicles tends to be when people leave their car doors unlocked. There is an assumption that if I lock my door, they're going to smash the window and take the stuff anyway. That's actually not true. Very rarely, I'm not going to say never, but rarely is your window smashed and your stuff taken. It's usually a crime of opportunity, and they just come along and check doors. So I would suggest people do lock their cars. But equally important with that is not to leave things in your car. We did have one just last week where a laptop, a purse, everything was left in the car overnight, and when the young lady came out in the morning, it was all gone. So if you do have to leave something in your car, hide it out of sight. Mischiefs went from 77 down to 68, and that's your things like property damage. Other criminal code, so that covers tons of things, but mostly it covers breaches and failing to comply with court conditions. So we have a lot of those, but it did drop a little bit from 120 a year to 114. Drugs number is a little bit, it's not actually accurate. So our drug officer actually works with the Kings County Street Crime Unit. So most of our drug files are actually filed under the RCMP's main number, but we do show 17 for this year, which was down from 37 the year before. Weapons went from 2 last year to 4. So up to, those were all firearms offenses, so that's just people who have guns that are not locked away properly. It's not anything that was huge. It, as I say, mostly was just unsafe storage. Provincial statutes was probably our biggest drop. Went from 664 down to 362. So that's really good, because when I looked at what makes this up, sometimes I don't even understand what these categories are. It's things like 911 calls, you know, false 911 calls. It's sudden deaths. It's helping child welfare, and it's mental health. So they all fall under there. So if those are all down, that's great for us as a community. Impaired driving went from 26 to 19 charged. I will say that 27 were brought in last year, but 8 of those passed, so they were released. And the Liquor Act went from 106 down to 53, so cut in half. And the guys tell me that, you know, in the heyday of Kentville, there were lots of bars and nightclubs that went into the evenings, but we don't really have any places now that operate late into the evening or give us any grief. So, and Apple Blossom was very quiet, and I will knock on wood when I say that. Motor vehicle accidents is pretty consistent from 144 to 136. So there is nothing we can do about that, but that number does stay fairly consistent from year to year. And provincial traffic went from 871 down to 662. And I would say, again, that's related to the warning tickets because they're documented. And as most of you know, I'm not a big fan of warning tickets, so the guys have responded to that accordingly and not written as many. So overall, those are our numbers. I think Kentville is an extremely safe town. I think that's in part thanks to the fact that we have 24-hour policing and the guys know the people here. So if there is a crime, they tend to know exactly who would probably commit that kind of crime, and they're able to go and stop it very quickly. So, any questions about any of that?
Any questions for the chief on this report? None. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, CEO, we're on to you, Engineering and Public Works.
Worship. Administrative demands for the department are being satisfied. Call volume is high regarding road conditions and snow removal processes at this time of year. Daily shop meetings with Public Works and water utility folks are occurring. The position of the director has been reposted to ensure the applicant list is current. All candidates who previously applied have been contacted so that their application can be refreshed if they choose, or to withdraw. I think for the most part, most folks are saying yes, please continue to consider me. The deadline for that application is April 5th. So with that deadline, we hope to pick that up, as we've been talking about for about 6 months. Public Works, the primary call for service is typically rated potholes and snow removal. As I've said, the high volume of salt is being used this year due to ice and freeze thaw conditions. What savings have been realized, although we're not sure, we have to wait for year end, due to reduced snow hauling, and that of course has been countered by salt and equipment repairs. So you just think there's not a lot of snow, but the costs are still there. Again, particularly the wear and tear on the vehicles, and Councillor Gerard would know this from his business, when you're scratching pavement versus snow, it really is hard on equipment. So we've seen some of those increased costs in maintenance around the equipment. Kentville Water Commission, the utility's operating within the compliance standards, and we are now having regular meetings of the Source Water Protection Advisory Committee, as well as the commission. Regional Sewer Committee has forwarded operating capital budgets for 1920 for each of the parties' considerations, and that is before you later in this budget. With respect to drop-ins and whatnot, the volume is fairly consistent. I think that would be, for the most part, the highlights.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the CAO? Councillor Ballin, please.
Thank you, Worship. So through the engineer, CEO, pothole season is now here, unfortunately. Is there a game plan to attack these issues? Like, I'm not going to name the streets, but I think we all know where the issues are, and it's going to get worse, and it's unfortunate, but...
Yeah. So, message for council and the viewing public.
Yep.
The simple way to describe this is you can't paint a wet wall. So, when potholes are wet and frozen and snow, you can't deal with them. You have to wait, because whatever you put in that hole will not stick. Now, we do have what we call quick patch, and it is what gets us by until the asphalt plants are up and running. And the asphalt plants are up and running not because of apple blossom, but coincidentally leading up to apple blossom. It's just construction season. So it's usually mid-April before asphalt plants are up and running. So that's the only time you'll see, smell, feel real asphalt. So for those that are speaking to you or to us, we say the more thorough pothole repair really does not happen till late May, because we can't patch potholes without asphalt. However, we do use this quick patch, so it is essentially asphalt in a bag, and it gets you through. So that would be our schedule, Councillor. Now, the larger street renewal will be part of our capital planning, and what streets get more thorough repair through the capital or thoroughly repaired through operating is subject to budget. But we will schedule, as we typically do, the main routes, Chester, Belcher, those main routes, Main Street, prior to apple blossom as soon as the plants are open.
So just so I can follow up, so just so I'm clear, because I'm not,
Okay.
I think I am, but if a citizen asks me about potholes and I'm getting the calls now, it's not the end of May, it's maybe mid-April, the plants open up and there may be some patchwork done. I mean,
so we'll be
end of May is not a good answer.
We'll be patching with asphalt in a bag,
Yeah,
from a bag, until the end of May.
good. Okay, that's what I thought. That's the
Okay.
clarity I was looking for.
So it is an inferior product, but until the plants are open, we don't have access to asphalt.
And again, the plants open mid-April?
No, typically mid-May. Did I say
Oh, I thought you said
April?
mid-April. You said
Did
April.
I say April? That's
Yeah.
my error.
Okay, that's,
And throw the name out there, Lafarge really is one of the preferred because, and they're in New Minas, or Greenwich, I think Howard Little and other folks, but it is industry standard for the most part that it's mid-May until we see asphalt. So we'll get by, we're all in the same boat. Each town, the province, we're all feeling the pain. With respect to, this is probably worth noting as well, we do not repair vehicles. Folks should go through their insurance provider, and if their insurance company doesn't like what we have to say, then we deal with it that way. But do not send folks our way for tires and struts and bumpers. We do not do that. It's their insurance, and then we wait and see. Okay?
Yep.
So I do appreciate the questions, because we'll be talking about this next month until asphalt arrives. Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Gerard, please.
Do we have a policy on marking? Like, for example, I was driving into the Ring parking lot the other day, and there's a hole about the size of a Volkswagen that the truck went into.
I think it was a mini car, somebody said.
But it's,
Yeah.
so is there ways of marking the really, really bad ones that, especially ones that are covered with water, because that's the problem on that?
Yes. So again, the guys even experimenting with crusher dust and gravels, and we do have some supply, but it's the same, and I don't mean to be sarcastic about it, but unless the conditions are right, even if we had asphalt, it wouldn't stay in the hole.
Yep.
So we had a discussion today about hopefully the next couple days, things will dry out a little bit. And we have some filings, I guess we would call it, or millings. Not a lot, but we do have some millings that we can preheat or heat. And those are basically gets ground up asphalt when we do resurfacing. A lot of the contractors keep that material now for their own purposes,
Yep.
but we are able to stockpile some of that. So there's some areas where we'll try this and we'll try this,
I'm thinking more so like a pylon.
I know, and there's some inherent risk with that as well, because then people start, going around pylons, and the chief of police, they start getting into lanes. So I don't have a great answer, other than it's Canadian resiliency, and we'll do our best to, put bumpy road signs out and those kinds of things. Yeah. Okay. And I should say as well, we do have these, our drive slow signs, which is a strategy we've talked about. But once the director of finance is sure we're not spending any money on snow removal, then that means it's over. We can get those signs out maybe sooner, which may slow traffic as well in some of these areas.
All right, thank you. Moving on to admin communication report.
Okay, thank you. Let's get it so we can read it here. So we've heard, an update on the website as well today, so that's good. In the month of February, 7,100 users visited our website. 1,300 users were interested in the Centennial Arena, primarily skate times, rentals, etc. 1,000 users were interested in posts regarding the need for a coach for the Kentville Wildcats. Well, there you go. 500 users were interested in job opportunities. And the Wildcats have secured a manager, not a coach, a manager. On February 28th, the town had 5,577 Facebook followers and 5,440 page likes. The most popular posts on Facebook in February were associated with Canada Games athletes and garbage at Oakdean Park. The communications team met 4 times to discuss ongoing communications and event-specific communications, as they normally do, to make sure we're current and on top of things. So you'll see there the different, aside from the arena and the head coach for the Wildcats, some of the other reasons folks visit the website, and then some of the other activities, events that we promote or help promote community-wide. Jennifer, anything to add to that as a member of the Storm team?
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Any questions for the CAO on the communications report? All right, moving on to your admin report, CAO.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Here we go. Valley Waste Resource Management consulting work scheduled to right-size the organization after the departure of Annapolis County is delayed a bit due to the lack of responses to the RFP, and the same is true for Kings Transit. While adhering to the procurement policies of the County of Kings, who are taking the responsibility for service assignment, they're reaching out to eligible firms looking to see who might be interested in performing this work. So we advertised it without any replies, and now we're essentially in the recruitment phase. Why didn't you? Would you be interested? And could you do it by? So I think the CAO from the county is getting some feedback, an uptake on that, but it has been a bit delayed, which is unfortunate, because budgets, I know at Valley Waste, for example, will be ongoing budgets will be dependent on that. As with Valley Waste, I've just noted the same thing. In addition, Kings Transit has assigned the audit firm BDO Canada LLP for a 3-year term for auditing services. The Police Commission is reviewing the possibility of reducing the size of the commission from 7 to 5 members. If approved by the Police Commission, it will come here for you folks to consider. Regional Sewer Authority. The Regional Sewer Committee met on February 21st. The primary purpose was to review the operating and capital budgets And as I noted earlier, that will be before you tonight, seeking your approval. Union negotiations, we have both CUPE and Atlantic Police Association agreements expiring in March. Internal meetings have been carried out by those of you on those committees so that we can think about language and whatnot leading into negotiations. Prior to negotiations, we will have to have a discussion with you folks about remuneration and the overall strategy around wages and pensions. And then we've talked a little bit about other benefits and their cost. Those are things we want to revisit with council before we enter those negotiations. I think for members of CUPE, we had those two options. It looks like early May is when we would schedule to officially start bargaining for them. We have not secured those dates with the police union. The business park, I'm happy to report we do continue to have tire kickers out there. However, when they materialize into real offers, we will have them here for you. Right now, there's 5 lots, which should be 2 different businesses. One is looking at 3 lots, and one is looking at 2 lots, of which 2 would be next to the 101. So, until they're on paper, they're not real, but I am optimistic. These folks seem to be well into the research phase and whatnot, so we'll wait to see, but we hope they materialize into offers. And then, of course, the season as well. It's hopefully the spring will bring development. The former KCA development has been noted here by the director. Nothing further to report, although it is ongoing, but we haven't seen as much activity as we'd like. Maybe that will pick up in the spring. VREN and LOC, Liaison and Oversight Committee, met on February 26, received operational and board of directors updates. The primary concern at the meeting is the departure of the town of Wolfville from the rent. There's ongoing discussions about the validity of Wolfville's notice to withdraw, and we have a joint council meeting. Do you know that date off the top of your head?
March 20th.
March 20th. So if you're able to attend, folks, please do. It's going to be a good opportunity to hear from the board and the staff and also other folks' concerns and accolades, I hope. The Culkin building, as noted, it's old news now. The new tenant has been secured and DeVries and Barnard Group's been signed. Some of my meetings are listed there as well. One of the highlights there is the Nova Scotia Hubs, Towns and Hubs meeting that the mayor and I attended on February 19th and 20th in Sydney. And encouraging to see how active and ambitious that group is to bring some issues forward that benefit towns like ourselves, but also help to influence NSFM and some of their prioritization. That would be my report.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions for the CAO? All right, you're off the hook.
Okay.
All right, we've received all of the reports. If I could have a motion to adopt the staff reports as presented. Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that staff reports be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to our unfinished business. The first item is Joint Fire Services Operating Budget. CEO?
Your Worship, we just keep this in front of council. I know we've had a request to delay this as there's some outstanding issues, questions, inquiries about the service level. I'm not sure if, as a group, you're prepared to revisit that, or if there's been any exploration into unknowns or concerns. I'll just bring it back to you.
All right, well, I had a meeting with the chief over at the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department today, and this budget was approved by the Joint Fire Commission on the 9th of January 2019 at an operational value of $610,000, with the town of Kentville share at $185,800, which is actually a 3% increase from last year's budget. At this point in time, the Joint Fire Commission is not reviewing this budget, so basically what we have is what we have.
Fair enough.
Councillor Gerard.
Yeah, we meet March 28th. And I didn't want to ask my questions through email. I wanted to ask the chief and the rest of the board face to face, so.
Okay. So, sorry, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we've tabled this the last 2 months, but if I understand you, you're saying it's been passed there?
That's correct. They have a motion of approval. And it was all members except for 2. The motion was carried.
Now, Your Worship, that of course is the position of the Fire Service Committee. Now, it's up to each party to say yes or no.
I don't believe the county has passed.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the counties.
Did we have a vote from here?
No, we haven't done
No.
anything.
No, I mean, our representatives on that committee.
I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't there, okay.
I had to leave early.
Sorry. You weren't there? I was.
Did you
Both of
vote?
them, both of their names are on the draft minutes right now as having voted for this.
I had to leave early, so that's a mistake in the draft.
You did, yeah.
Okay.
I did vote in.
So just for further clarification, if we could, I just flashed that up on the screen. And I think, Your Worship, you did hit the 3%. They are looking at an overall increase to their budget of 3%. The county's looking at a 1.8% increase for their allocation, and we're looking at a 6% increase for our cost. Now, that has been changed because of the ongoing formula, the fire calls over the previous 3 years, kilometers traveled, and number of calls. So this last year has negatively or positively?
Only until December.
It's only till December?
Yes.
So will yeah, it's December to December though.
No.
So could this be revised before
There will be a small change.
a small change?
But
Okay.
it'll be minimal.
Right, 3 months within the last 36 months,
Yes.
so to speak. So, so, I guess at some point though, the fire service will need some direction and hopefully we'll get our questions answered at that meeting.
Are they, could you not just send them to them, or is it that pressing? I don't.
So we had our draft budget December 15th. They said had all questions in by December 18th. Had my questions in, and then the answers they gave to those questions spawned more questions. So we, and we haven't been together since I think it was the first part of January the 4th. So I've got more questions because there's some things that I think we've changed.
In their draft budget?
Or at least, so for example, in one of the meetings, they had a $14,000 phone bill. And I said, for the year, sorry, not a month, for the year. So I said, what does that consist of? Well, we have phone and internet and cable. And I said, yes, that's fine, but that's not $14,000. So it took 8 months for me to get the information of what it was. There's 7 cell phones and there's, right, they've got cable in there. So they are a bit slow at answering questions or not giving complete answers.
But if Councillor Andrew has voted, and was he your alternate at that?
We're both on it.
Oh, sorry, okay. Okay.
But I mean, that's just, all that's saying
okay.
is that the Joint Fire Services is going to present us with a budget that they agree with. We are, this council is the one that has to pass.
Sure, oh no,
that
I
budget.
realize that, yeah. Yeah.
But we actually have a budget here. So why can't we make a decision to pass this or not? Councillor Bolland.
Exactly my point. And there's an area rate meeting a week from tonight. So
Yeah.
I suggest we get our ducks in a row here tonight, resolve it, and pass this.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Andrew?
My feeling is that there's a culture shift happening with the new chief, and I think he's definitely raising the bar. I would concur with Councillor Gerard that there has been a bit of an issue in the past where it was clear that I would say we were not welcome to ask detailed questions, to peel back the layers, if you will. And in fact, that was met with it wasn't met with smiles and that kind of thing. So anyway, I don't want to go into that too much, but it was not received well when a little bit of digging and prying into some of those expenditures happened. Not a nice place to be as a partner in it, but ultimately I had confidence that the budget was going the right direction.
Okay, thank you. So we still have a recommendation for the 2019-2020 Kentville Volunteer Fire Department operational budget be approved as presented. Deputy Mayor.
Two things. I was going to make the motion, but just before that, I'm assuming Director Kroll, do you review this as well? And did you have questions around it? No. Okay. If it's okay, the recommendation is that 2019-2020 Volunteer Fire Department operational budget be tabled until the next CAC meeting.
That's what it was.
That's what it was.
Okay. Okay.
So we're approving the 2019-2020 Kentville Volunteer Fire Department operational budget of $610,000, with the town of Kentville's share being $185,800, to be ratified at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting.
Okay.
And you're making that?
I'll move that. I'll
Okay.
make that motion.
And a seconder? Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I was just looking at the number you referenced.
Okay.
to make sure.
Is it still good?
It's the same number.
I changed pages. Okay, it has been moved and seconded that council advisory approve the 2019-2020 Kentville Volunteer Fire Department operational budget of $610,000, with the town of Kentville share at $185,800, to be ratified on March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bolland.
So, assuming this passes, what does this do to the logic of an area rate meeting on Monday? Knowing that it could reverse at council.
We're passing the operational budget. The area rate is for capital expenses, not operations, yes.
Good.
Yeah. And it's good that you point that out, because the area rate is what actually comes on our tax bill. So regardless of what the town of Kentville puts on our tax bill, there's the additional area rate that will come from that meeting that night, that Monday night. So it's important that people attend that meeting so they know how much capital funds our fire department is looking for. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the 2019-2020 Kentville Volunteer Fire Department operational budget of $610,000, with the town of Kentville share at $185,800, to be ratified at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Voting is closed. Motion is passed with one dissenting vote. You got that? Thank you. All right, our next piece of business is Business Park street naming. Director Gentleman.
Thank you again. As council is aware, there were 2 streets in the business park that required naming. A report went to council in January with a recommendation for one of the streets as a result of a couple of issues, but that road has been named Culkin Drive. It's just essentially an extension to Culkin Avenue, rather. And further at that meeting, CAC did discuss possible names for the other street that was on the plan. And at that time, Councillor Maxwell suggested a name be submitted from the First Nations community. Mayor Snow suggested Robert Borden, who is a former Prime Minister of Canada who had practiced law in Kentville. And then a third option was submitted by Councillor Pulsiver, the name Lions. Council was also asked if they had any other ideas or names to submit those. However, at this time, there was not a name forthcoming from the First Nations community, so now we only have 2 names that have been suggested for that second road. Again, that would be Robert Borden, as suggested by Mayor Snow, and then Lyons, suggested by Councillor Pulsifer. So she did submit an email, and that was sent out to everybody, I think, and the rationale behind it, but he was also a mayor in the town. That would obviously keep the road naming consistent with the other names that are out there as well, that are all mayor names. So unless CAC and council wants to review this a little further, I would suggest maybe picking one of the 2 names that have been submitted.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Bev, did anybody contact any of the First Nations groups in the Annapolis Valley for feedback, or did we just go to the Kings County Diversity Committee?
Kings County Diversity,
Yeah, like, I just feel that, you know, it was a month, and we only contacted one organization, and we let the entire month slip by, and we didn't go and talk to any of the First Nations group. I feel due diligence wasn't done here on looking for a name from the First Nations community. I'd like to see this deferred.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we're in March now. So it was back at the it was at the February meeting that we had King's Diversity meeting, and we talked about it, and everybody at our committee meeting thought it was a great idea. And I've asked Brittany about it a couple of times, but I haven't, and so much as today I emailed her on it, and I hadn't heard anything back. But the idea was to bring some of the elders from the First Nations, Annapolis Valley First Nation, and get their input at one of our committee meetings. But our last committee meeting was delayed. It was canceled because of a snowstorm. And I haven't heard anything since then. But so the idea was very much there to do that and to invite them to participate at our meeting. But I haven't had a response.
So yeah, okay, so this is the route that we had gone through, and with Director Benefield as well, contacting the group. So yeah, certainly we can reach out. I don't know if the diversity group is planning on bringing in some of the elders.
Well, that was the plan, and like I say, I emailed her today. She may be off. I'm not sure. And we do have a King's Diversity meeting. It's been rescheduled to this coming Monday night. Yeah. So it's not very long. It's not very.
Okay, so you can provide us some of the contacts.
Absolutely.
With the First Nations,
It's on the agenda. So
okay.
Councillor Pulsifer.
I just wanted to make the comment as to how, what length of time we'll wait as far as, is there an end date for coming up with an Indigenous name from the community, or will this kind of go on for another couple months?
I don't know. It all depends on the feel of the
really
community.
Yeah. Again, you know, there's at some point it's not a competition, but you'll be picking something.
Mm-hmm.
Our concern on the street name is that it be named before we have someone living or as a business there.
Right. Yeah.
So with the land sale process, and then really the land sale process, because they need a civic address for delivery of materials and all that kind of stuff. So when and if we get an offer, that's kind of the critical time at the latest, I guess I would say, that we have a name.
So is the Robinson Cannabis, is that on that street, or is that on another street?
It's on Rockwell.
Rockwell.
Yeah, that's on Rockwell.
Another point that might be made, the CAO and I traveled to Glooscap for a REN meeting, and I was noting the street names there, and the name Peters, comes up. So it's very much anglicized names of of chiefs. It is not Indigenous wording. And one of the things that I think we have to be mindful of is that this is really a piece of pavement that we're naming. And it is in a business park, so from being able to get directions to, or using that in your addressing, it would make sense when we do have what I would consider a very natural thing that we're going to be building in the coming year when our new bridge comes in and we do our canoe launch. And if you think about that canoe launch and the positioning of it on that river, maybe that might be an opportunity to pay homage to our First People and our First Nations. I would like to suggest that we decide on one of these names because they fully meet our criteria, and they would be good names in a business park. Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, I have no problem with the other two names at all, although they're typical male names. I do have a problem with making sure that we cover due diligence when we're asking for information. And I did specifically ask for that community to be approached, and it just seems as that call went out to our Kings County diversity group. We just overlooked the Indigenous community. So I do have a problem with that.
If I may, Your Worship.
Certainly.
So I think the thing to note here is that we're working with a different culture, and so going out to the Indigenous community can seem disingenuous if we're approaching them for the first time to take something from them so that we can feel better about the naming of our street. It's not that it's not a really good idea, and it has the opportunity to even form ties in terms of reconciliation. But we can't expect a genuine relationship if we're going to say you have 2 months to give us a name or you have 1 month to give us a name. It needs to be a little bit more in depth than that, which I think why going through the Kings County Diversity Committee that already has those relationships with the chiefs, is probably the best way to go, because that's the system and culture that they have created. So that's something to take note on the table. So if you really want to do engagement, that would be the recommendation. If we want to take it off the table, which would be the other recommendation, and go that way, because we don't want to cause more harm.
No, definitely, I don't want to cause more harm, but I would like to wait for the diversity committee to see what they can do.
Thank you. Councillor Pulsford, please.
I just wanted to note that, there has been a precedent set, I believe, from previous councils that, the streets were named after mayors or after, prominent people from the past of Kentville, or Kentville's past, rather. And I was also using an indigenous name. Perhaps the pronunciation might be a problem. So, I know, Mayor Snow, you did mention an English, easy pronunciation of a chief's name, which, I just felt that we might get a long name here that would be difficult to, pronounce, spell, and so on. So, I just wanted to make that note.
Your Worship.
Certainly.
If I might, before somebody feels a motion coming on, in case somebody feels a motion coming on, I'm wondering if Director Gentleman has a recommendation as to whether this is such and so street, avenue, drive, or what it is. And often there's already a policy in place that roads running in one direction are streets and the other direction are avenue and that sort of thing. But this needs to be part of your motion, because it's part of the name of the street. And I was sitting here trying to remember what they are out there, but my recollection is that there are avenues in one direction out there and the other ones are streets. It's my recollection, and I may be wrong about that. But in any event, that's part of the name, so it needs to be considered.
It's a street. It was a street naming in accordance with our policy.
Sorry, but it could be such and so street or such and so avenue, or, right, so it's part of the name.
Right.
Is my point.
Right.
And I don't think your policy requires that it be street.
They all need drive. Majority are drive.
Drive, yeah, so I was wondering whether drive was just one direction out in the park and they were called something else the other direction. Maybe they're all drive out
I
there.
think they're all drives or courts, by quick reference
Courts
here.
would
So
be
the court would be a dead end.
Yeah,
Of course,
and I
of
think,
course. Right.
Okay,
In which case, perhaps it's appropriate that this name end in drive.
right.
Or that, but it is part of the name, so we have to keep
Okay.
that in mind.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew?
That's been addressed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gerard?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with you, and I agree with Rachel. This isn't going to be the last street to be named in Kentville. There's not an immediate sense of urgency, but we don't want to run into the same problem we had before, where someone's already bought the land and it's been named Street XYZ, and that's what it's got to stay. I would make a motion that we accept the recommendation, and through whatever form of election you want for one of the two names that's been brought forward, and I would look for a seconder on that.
So you're moving to,
We accept the recommendation and have a vote or an election.
Okay. Okay, so if I withdraw the name Borden, it leaves Lyons on the table? Councillor Pulsford, does that work for you?
Yes.
All right.
I'll second
Councillor
Lyons.
Gerard, does that work for you?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so we're making a motion to use the name Lyons Drive as Street A, Parcel SA1 in the Kentville Business Park. It will now be known as Lyons, with an S, Lyons Drive. So that's Lyons Drive. And for approval by council at the March 25th, 2019 council. And so Councillor Gerard, you made that motion, and Deputy Mayor, you seconded?
Yes.
So it has been moved and seconded that Council Advisory recommend the name for Street A, Parcel SA-1 in the Kentville Business Park as Lyons Drive for approval by council at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bolland, you had your light on. Did you?
Draw. The question was answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to recommend the name for Street A, Parcel SA1 in the Kentville Business Park as Lyons Drive for approval by council at March 25th, 2019 council meeting. The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, our next piece of unfinished business is digital sign placement. Director Bedingfield.
So I am going to go through and read the report just to make sure that we've covered it. At the January 29th, 2018 council meeting, the following motion was carried by council: that staff take down the electronic sign located at Veterans Lane until we determine budget and positioning for it. On February 7th, 2018, staff took down the digital sign. Currently, it's being stored at the water treatment building on Chester Avenue. On February 6th, 2019, council received a letter from the director of the Kentville Wildcats regarding the town's digital sign at Memorial Park. Mr. Van Blarkum asked council when the sign would be reinstated and where the new location would be. The community events, the community event sign started at the Veterans Lane location as a single-sided, non-automated letter sign. At the request of staff, the letterboard sign was upgraded to a single-sided digital sign in 2013 as a means for the town and community groups to advertise their events and activities more effectively. The single-sided digital sign was deemed to be distracting to drivers who needed to look away from the road to read the information. It was on an angle, so you had to turn your head. The single-sided sign was upgraded to a more user-friendly double-sided digital model in 2015. The Kentville Legion worked closely with the town hall staff and the mayor at the time to determine the best location for the new digital sign in Memorial Park. There were no complaints or concerns received regarding the location of the digital sign from the public or the Legion formally from 2015 to 2018. Since 2015, the digital sign has been managed by the Recreation Facilities Manager and the Recreation Communications and Resource Coordinator, and then later to the Communications team. On January 15th, 2018, a citizen expressed concern about the placement of the town's digital sign as being disrespectful to the Veterans Memorial Cenotaph. This letter was read at the January meeting of the Council Advisory Committee, and on January 18th, 2018, Mayor Snow responded that staff would prepare a report with alternate locations for the sign before taking down the sign, and that the cost would be incorporated into budget deliberations for 2018-2019. Staff prepared a digital sign report with locations for the digital sign for the Council Advisory Committee in May of 2018. At this meeting, Council voted to relocate the sign to Burger Hill on the south side of the road heading west for a total cost of $17,726.57. This recommendation was passed to Council on May 30th, 2018, however was not approved. Council passed a motion that staff provide additional relocation sites further in the west of town, and that a traffic study be done in the area of consideration of the digital sign being erected. So that's where we're at now. Considerations for the placement of the digital sign as presented on the May 14th, 2018 CAC meeting. Because it is a double-sided sign, it cannot be located on a one-way street. This means that it will need to be located east of Chester Ave and Main Street or west of Webster Street and Main. The sign must be 25 feet off the curb. Recommendations for sightlines are 100 feet in either direction, and sign dimensions are 6 by 10, plus brackets, and the posts are 15 feet. Post length could change depending on the topography of the site location. Policy implications. Section 4.3.4 of the land use bylaw states the following: prohibited signs, including digital signs. A, C, signs which incorporate in any manner any flashing or scrolling, moving illumination which varies in intensity and color. All digital signs that were erected before the date of the adoption are exempt. The land use bylaw goes on to define a digital sign as a subsegment of electronic signage. Digital displays use technologies such as LCD, LED projections, and e-paper to display digital items, video, webpage, weather data, restaurant menus, or text. Further, Kentville's communication plan includes a section on the use and management of the digital sign. Currently, the plan covers the digital sign at the Kentville Arena, but it did also govern the use of the Memorial Park digital sign when it was in use. The Parks and Recreation Department has one digital sign located at the Centennial Arena, which aims to share information about town programs, activities, and special events. It also serves as a means of communicating town information, such as meetings and emergency measures. Content on the digital sign must ensure the following: reflect the vision of a healthy, vibrant, integrated, and complete community where citizens can live, work, and play in an environment that supports a high quality of life. And B, a maximum of 4 to 6 slides has been deemed appropriate for upload to the sign. This is so that slides do not repeat and can all be seen within a short amount of time. Commercial advertising specifically and solely for the promotion of private for-profit businesses and organizations is not permitted and is violation of the town's off-premise advertising bylaw. So under budget implication, I've updated the spreadsheet that was originally proposed to you, just to give you some ideas. There's been a few more things added to that. So we have the original Burger Hill location, the Visitor Information Center, corner of Gary Pearl and West Main Street, Gary Pearl and Park Street, Cornwallis and Brooklyn. There was thought of private land. Of course, we haven't specified which place that is yet. And of course, the original location, should you choose to go there. However, and you can see in the package, there's all these lists of attachments as well. So there was meetings from the previous council minutes, previous letters, previous budget reports, everything. So under recommendation, to reinstate the sign, council must take the following steps. Number 1, amend the signage bylaw to permit the resurrection of the two-way digital sign anywhere in town. Number 2, approve a location for the sign to be located. And number 3, approve the final budget for reinstallation. Therefore, I am recommending that council choose one of the following options. 1, that council reinstate the digital sign in accordance with the aforementioned steps. Or 2, that council direct staff to sell the digital sign as access equipment.
Thank you. Questions for the director? Councillor Gerard, please.
So, you don't think a new spot is, obviously you're not recommending a new spot.
Nope.
Also, I'd like to know, what's the grandfather clause for the sign?
So I can answer both of those questions. There are 2 recommendations on the table. One is if you would like to reinstate the sign, then one of the steps is to pick a location from the 7 options that I've given you. I'm not sure what the grandfather piece is. It's any sign that was in place before you folks passed the bylaw is exempt from the digital sign. So the arena sign, for example, would be exempt. People's open, close sign.
Home hardware.
Home hardware, yeah, things like that.
Patties.
They would be exempt. That's right.
Patties.
Yeah.
Patties, yeah, exactly.
So could we put the sign back where it was? Or would we still have to change?
I would look at the solicitor for that.
Would we, like, okay, so for example, as council, could we not,
Not follow your own bylaw? You
yeah,
good?
yeah.
Sure.
So it's, if I can just chime in, I would suggest you not get caught up on the legality aspect of this. The director's not here, but, and I haven't been asked to look at this, but the town exempted itself from structures, as I recall, around the Bonavista Playground issue, and I'm not sure why that doesn't apply here, but maybe it was much more limited than my recollection. If you look at the signage part of the land use bylaw, it's maybe that other part got forgotten in this context, or it may be that it doesn't apply, but it's pretty easy for you guys to exempt yourself from these rules. Generally speaking, signage rules have been written for businesses, not for the town for communication. So if you choose a spot that works and you need to legalize either an existing sign that might be out there or the spot for this sign, you can do so easily enough.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Andrew, please.
This has come back several times, and it's one of those funny issues. It seems maybe not overly important, but it is. I think I wouldn't change the way I voted on it. I think it was perhaps rash, and I think I'll take responsibility. I don't know if I was the one who put forward the motion at that time, but I know I voted for it. And we had a citizen who was concerned. I certainly felt the sentiment that it seemed, in my view, to cheapen what that War Memorial area is about. Had I known at that time the process, as I do now, and the difficulty and the challenges that would potentially be faced, certainly would have looked at something more like exploring a new site before we even touched the sign. We didn't do it that way, and I think it speaks to, and I'll just take responsibility for my own vote on it, because I know I voted in favor. It comes down to inexperience. And anyway, so we own that, we move forward. I think the sign has great value. People have an attachment to it. It has the potential to promote positive things in the town. It'd be sad to see it not used. So anyway, that's just my thought on it. I just felt it was important, because I've had a number of people say, I won't say how they had it, but they asked how this happened and what were we doing, and I just think it's important that we own that. We don't make great decisions every time, and it was one of those decisions I think for some of us, myself for sure, made without a lot of knowledge of how the process was going to work. So.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Rachel, the when the sign was first erected, like, were the veterans, were they consulted? Like, there were conversations, were there not, in terms of, or do you know?
Yes, yeah, and the CIO can correct me if I'm wrong. So the history of the two-way digital sign,
right,
was that it was erected in the location, and then there was consultation, not formal, but consultation afterwards, and then the sign was actually moved to a commonly approved location by both the Legion and the town. So it's already been moved once. Twice, actually, if you count. Maybe 3 times.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
From its inception, yeah.
Yeah, if there's one vote I could take back, it would be that one, and not supporting and moving it. But nevertheless, we did, as Councillor Andrews said. What is your recommendation? Is there one location you think is better than another? Like when you look at the Fair and the Good, and the Burger Hill seems to be a really good location, but I'm just curious, as the Director of Recreation, what you think.
I think to get the traffic and to have the sight lines, so really that's the piece. To be perfectly honest, it was in its current location, or its previous location.
Its previous location, yeah.
That's where we have, even in the summers, we have Memorial Park is where we have people dropping stuff for camps or picking up for camp. We've got all the ball games there. We've got the tennis tournaments going on. We've got, and just the sightlines coming around the turn. We haven't taken a closer look at the Burger Hill sightlines. I know it comes up on a corner quite quickly. The other piece to note is that Burger Hill, which does, it is a main entry point into town as well, but the footings would cost more because the legs would have to be uneven, so that's an additional cost. So if you just break it down to cost, to put it back to its original location is $18,000 roughly in total. Burger Hill is around $24,000.
So to put it back in its original location would be 18,000-ish?
Yeah, it's the cheaper of all the options at this point.
It's not?
Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. I take comfort in the director's comments about the consultation done a number of years ago. I take comfort in her written report that no complaints were ever sent into your office or town hall from 2015 to 2018.
Not that we've been able to find them.
Again, I was not here that night for that meeting. I would have thought that it stayed in its place, but I think logically now, hindsight, it should go back to where it was. Again, if the Legion has no issue with it, and there's no complaints, my phone's not ringing about it, I think we've got to do something soon. The locations are very, very limited, so.
Your Worship, just to make sure that we're completely transparent. We did not receive a lot of written complaints or emails, but we did get some calls from adjacent landowners, and we tried to dial in the brightness, the period of time of which it was operating. So we've tweaked that as best we could to say that everyone's happy. I don't know that we could say that, that lives in the area, but to try to find a compromise while it was operational, I'd say we found it. But just to be truthful and transparent.
Yeah, we didn't receive any formal letters to council, but yes, that's why the sign was, it's turned off at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Councillor Gerard, please.
So in May of 2018, the cost to locate the sign on Burger Hill was $17,000. So what you're saying tonight is that to put it back where it was is going to cost $17,000? 18,000?
Yeah.
So it's going to cost, as of today, it's going to cost more to put it back where we had it before than it was to put it on Burger Hill a year ago.
Yeah, and part of that is because the sign needs to be repaired. It's been sitting down, so the total cost for repairing the sign at this point is $14,000, which is included in these costs.
Okay.
And Burger Hill's 40,000.
Well, Burger Hill is 23.7.
Yeah, it's more than.
And that's including the $14,000 to repair, which is included in all of these costs.
So the price you gave us in May of 2018 of $17,726, was that also to repair the sign and put it?
This has been an updated quote based on the fact that the sign has been sitting in a shed and it's been wet, and that includes transportation back to Halifax to get it repaired and come back here. So these are updated numbers.
Councillor Pulsifer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a concern as to the location between two crosswalks, that it's distracting anyone that comes along the street. There are two crosswalks, either whichever way you come, you're going to face the sign and a crosswalk ahead of you. You're looking at, I just feel the safety issue of that location is, it's a danger to anyone walking across those crosswalks. Distraction and a danger.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew?
I know that was part of our discussion when we went through it. There was the issue of kind of the sacredness of the location and what it was for. There was also, and I should note that I did have a former Kentville resident who doesn't live in the province any longer, who was so appreciative that finally someone took note of this as a real error, because they would have looked out their window and seen that sign. So I think some people, but we know that some issues, for whatever reason, the engagement is low, and I don't know why it wasn't with this. I'm very surprised, as someone who's been involved in veterans matters, that it wasn't an issue sooner. But you did mention at that time in that discussion about the fact that there are two crosswalks, and I know for myself, it's one of those places. It's real easy to miss those. You're on a stretch, and so I would just say that I think it's a mistake to put it that close to to residential living, and I think there's got to be a better option somewhere along the main stretch.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, please.
Rachel, just the two different price breakdowns here. The newest one is the last one, is that correct? Like I'm looking at Visitor Information Center Memorial Park Upper Parking Lot, $15,579.01, didn't include a $2,000 maintenance fee. That would take it to $17,000. But down below it says $24,300. Like, how come such a jump between those two?
Because that's an updated quote we got from the manufacturer to fix the sign after laying around for a year. So it's been included in that. That's why I apologize, it's not really hard. It's hard to compare the two tables because they are different.
Yeah.
But this, the final table for my report that I'm presenting right now has that included, which for all of these is an additional $14,000.
Okay, because it was damaged when it was taken down. Is that correct?
It was damaged when it was taken down, but also it's been laying down in a location for a year.
Yeah, okay. I don't ever regret decisions that we make. I think we made a good decision. I think our hearts were in the right places when we made that decision. I'm going to ask you if the Legion was given any choices as to where that sign was moved when they decided they didn't like it 3 feet closer to the cenotaph than where it is now. Or did they just look at that spot and where on that spot could it be moved?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I was more engaged with that. I would say it was, we'd like to put a double-sided sign in this general area versus where would you like to see it in the town.
Right.
And of course, we also have to be mindful that legions and board of directors and presidents, they change and people come and go. So that was the consultation with that administration of the Legion. Today it could be the same or different.
Yeah.
Different than any of other environments.
But it was put up before there was any consultation, and so they did have a problem with it. Is that correct?
No. So as Rachel has highlighted, we put a one-sided sign where the old letter sign was. And then, there was issues with that. So before the double-sided sign went up, there was consultation with what I believe was at least the president of the Legion. Whether it was a board decision, I don't know. But I know the president was there. Now, the day that the footings were put in the ground, I would put that more on us, the town, versus the Legion. And as soon as you saw the footings, it became apparent that it was, at least to some of us, that it was too close. And the decision was made to relocate it, make it was just too close. It was just encroaching on it, and it was right there. So depending on your opinion and all that kind of stuff, but the decision of the day with their consultation was to move it where it was, which is 16 feet or 20 feet or wherever it was. Yep. So.
I think the Visitor Information Center upper parking lot is a good location for it. I'm just wondering if you looked at where the fence comes down along Park Street there behind the ball field, and then they have their sign so it converges like this. So the fence comes into a corner there. There's a couple of trees there that aren't very big and I think there's power that goes into the ballpark at that point. It would just be on the other side of the road.
At the west end of Veterans Lane?
The west end of
Counselor?
Veterans Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether that site could be looked at. It's on the same side as the Wildcat sign.
The sign that's currently there,
The sign that's currently there, the home of the Kentville Wildcats or whatever, only it's just up, and it's at the corner of the fence. Those couple of trees were taken down. You probably have a good sight line there, and that might be a good spot. But I like the upper parking lot the best. I think it's a good spot. It's not near any residences or anything like that. So.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I was, just to sort of echo what Councillor Maxwell said, that's, between that and the Burger Hill one probably would be my two top choices. But where the Visitor Information Center are there crosswalks close to that?
No, the closest crosswalk there is what Councillor Pulsifer was speaking of. So it's actually a little bit lower, and that is because you have better sight lines there, which is ironic because that's why the sign is there.
Oh, okay.
Because there's better sight lines for it.
Yeah.
So the Visitor Information Center has, I would say, some space to put it, but you would probably only see it in one direction, which is why it's marked fair, not good. But we can certainly take a look at it and do some measurements.
Councillor Gerard.
I was just going to say that most of the complaints that we had of the sign where it was were citizen complaints about the brightness and the light and stuff. You would have to take down 10 trees, and you would still have the problem of residents. So I was going to suggest that we put it at Burger Hill. Make a decision tonight, or at least make a motion if the rest of council is accepting of it. I'd make a motion to put it at Burger Hill, and then if in the next 2 weeks they find that they can't live with that, then we vote it down at the. But I think Burger Hill is going to be the best location for it. As for the, saying that that's a big recreational area, and I think if that is the case, perhaps with our new acquisition or our new lease of the ravine land and the entrance exit to the walking trail and Burger Hill, the recreational stuff that can be done at Burger Hill, it might spawn some extra activity of that end of town. So I would make that motion if I could get a seconder that we move the sign to Burger Hill.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the two-sided electronic sign be moved to Burger Hill to be approved at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Is there any discussion? Councillor Ballin, just...
I like the upper parking lot as well, but I'm looking at sight lines, and Burger Hill was the motion that I actually put on the floor here months ago on this, and I think as a plan B, I think it gives the best sight lines, and we're looking at a street here that's one of our major entry points into town. So if people are coming in from the Midas and they're going to Hulse Harbor, they're still going to go by the sign and see it. So it's a major choke point, or I should say choke point, but it's a major entry point into town, as the other entrances as well. But I think super visibility, and again, the staff have rated it as good.
I don't believe that tree's there anymore.
Yeah, I think someone's toboggan took that out, so.
No, it's there. There's a couple oaks, but we'll find it. Like, your
So, yeah,
worship,
I think,
if I could
this
just
would be
add
the-
as well, it's assumed that we will do this part as a 1920 capital budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want that added to the motion? Does that have to,
Mover.
as an
I-
amendment? Or
I
is
think
that-
our budget process is going to go into May and June now, and it'd be nice to have this up before Apple Blossom in the ball season, but
So-
that's up to staff to see if they can
And
find the
we can do
numbers.
that in advance. It
Yeah.
just means that it is in the capital budget.
Mhm.
Everything else is on the table except for this, because we're approving it essentially in advance. That's all.
Yeah.
It's an accounting procedure.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pulsifer.
So the location would be on the town-owned property, just like what we're seeing there? Where
We
it
own
dips
that side of
down
the
and...
street.
Town owns
Okay.
Burger Hill.
Right.
25-foot setback, I think, Director, you were looking for?
Yes, I think that's one of the requirements.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the pieces for this location to note is that the costs for here, because we have to make new legs.
Right.
They're gonna go, so that's part of the cost that we have.
So is the orchard, is that federal property, or that's not our property? Where the
That is
orchard?
federal property, so the west side of
Mhm.
the driveway is federal. We own
Right.
Burger Hill proper.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is to move the two-sided electronic sign to Burger Hill under the 2019-2020 budget. All, capital budget. Very good, thank you.
Oh, do Jennifer?
Yeah. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and that passes unanimously. Motion is carried. Thank you. Before you go, Director, you've said $14,000 for repair. This thing has a 2015 digital processor in it, and we all know that electronics in this day and age, particularly digital and particularly those run by software, don't last for very long. So what's our drop dead point on how much it's going to cost us to repair this thing?
That's the quote from the company.
And that includes software updates and any necessary
I'm not actually sure.
flashware?
I think it's just getting it to the point where it was before. It's the same type of sign that we have at the arena.
Right, right.
Yep.
Okay.
We can report back.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going forward to council, so maybe we can, now we have location, we can get
Yeah,
something a little
absolutely.
bit more tight
Mhm.
for council meeting, so you have an indication.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look into that for sure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gerard, please.
Could we also add, or maybe it's in there, we had talked before about the remote, or making it more remote. Is that where, say, Ashley downstairs could sit there and say, this is what we want, instead of Kevin or whoever driving out to the sign and connecting that way?
On his laptop.
On his laptop,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, we can look into that. Again, these things all come with the price, but we can absolutely take a look at them and bring them to the council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, folks, that's some direction on that, that's great.
All right, CEO, next item is bylaw enforcement policy.
Thank you, Worship. It's just really to show that we are making progress on this, but we haven't been able to prepare basically enforcement policy that we're comfortable with just yet, including the solicitor's review. Primarily the examples that we're downloading when we go through the different departments, now that won't work. That will be difficult. I'm not sure we can do that. So we're just really trying to streamline some of the existing policies that are out there so that we can have something that works for us but meets your expectations. So So we continue to work on it as we are, and hope to have something for you sooner than later. I apologize, that's not very exact, but just competing with other things and trying to find these policies that we think, will satisfy you before we bring them to you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item, capital project report.
So as normal, it's there for your review. I think we've kind of touched on them. You see the Director of Finance earlier, looking at funding and listing projects. I think I would say when you see a CWIP, capital work in progress, it's not a given. We do not assume that any of the projects that were not started this year will be in 1920's budget, that you will have the opportunity to revisit them. There are some projects that have started, so we have kind of committed to them, so we'll expect those will continue. But we'll say work around the bridge, or even something like the canoe launch, for example, where it hasn't been started. You'll have the opportunity to lay those against other projects during the capital budget process as we see what your priorities are for next year. So anyway, if there's any questions about any of the existing projects, we try to keep this table as fresh as we can for you. We are approaching year end, obviously, so from a financial point of view. So we will be, leaving these projects behind or bringing them forward again for your consideration.
Excellent, thank you. And question, Councillor Gerard, please.
Just looking through this again, Mark, and I'm just wondering, has there been any update on the bridge? So, for example, is Nova Scotia Power, have they done what they need to do? Bell Alliant, have they?
Yeah. I haven't had any communication probably since before Christmas. And before Christmas, I think I'd reported to you that they felt they were on the tail end. Now, I think I could say probably February and January, maybe February. I've seen telecommunications folks over there.
Yeah.
So I guess as we embark on now this new construction season, we can get an update. But I know the folks at the province, I don't want to use the word frustration because I think they appreciate the timing associated with the telecom and Nova Scotia Power. And then even the Dexters of the world, they have contracts and they're secure and they have adjustment in pricings. I think we're motivated to get this project started, but I'll do my best to get an update for you, certainly for budget deliberations, because some of our projects are dependent on the construction season and the construction around the bridge. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. All right, moving on to correspondence. We have one piece of correspondence from the town of Shelburne with regards to cost sharing for public infrastructure.
Okay. Okay, I'll just read one. Dear municipal units of Nova Scotia, again from the town of Shelburne. The town of Shelburne would like to propose that a portion of the provincial HST goes to municipal units who own and are responsible for 2/3 of public infrastructure. As we all know, property taxes alone can't keep up with the growing local needs. There is mounting evidence that the main risk to financial viability of our communities is both the cost of infrastructure to provide services and service levels that don't reflect fiscal capacity. Asset management studies have demonstrated that our infrastructure is in need of maintenance and repairs that already exceed our budgets, let alone expanding infrastructure to help our communities grow. As municipal units, we're often faced with new responsibilities that are forced upon us by the provincial government. In Shelburne, we have a former federal government wharf that requires major repairs to maintain. We are being told to contribute to doctor retention programs, fund libraries, fund education, pay for policing, and so many more additional expenses that were not part of the responsibility in the past. These new additional costs, ones that we have no choice but to accept, make it even more difficult to plan future projects and to stick to our budgets. By distributing a small portion, as we are asking for 0.75% of the HST to municipal units, this will result in municipal units receiving a portion of the taxes collected for both tourism and residents who use our infrastructure without having to resort to imposing large increases in property taxes to cover our basic needs. HST makes up 18% of the total tax revenue. We are asking for 0.75% of that 18%. The Nova Scotia provincial government is balancing their budget while many municipalities are struggling to maintain basic standards. The town of Shelburne is asking our municipal units to collectively lobby for the small share of HST and ask you to write us showing support. This item could then be forwarded to the NSFM. Please send all letters to the clerk at Shelburne. And it's signed by the mayor, I believe. Yep, it's signed by the mayor.
Thank you. Is there any comments, activity, thoughts? Councillor Gerard, please.
Thank you, Worship. I totally agree with this, especially in a town that, you know, we own all of our streets and we maintain all of our streets, but the ones that are supposed to be provincially maintained, we also maintain those. And it's for our citizens. But I totally agree. Infrastructure is a huge cost to the taxpayer, and we should have money coming from whatever source we can get it to help pay for it.
Thank you. Councillor Ballin, please.
Thank you, Richard. I just want to echo his comments. I agree totally, and I think the more that we ask the provincial government to consider this, the better the odds of it happening. So,
Okay.
yeah, we should send back a letter of support, certainly.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, please.
I agree with this totally. I think it's about time that we found a way to tap into some of those provincial funds, and as far as taxation goes, I think this is a great idea and it's well needed in municipalities, so I support it.
Thank you. Councillor Pulsifer.
I also support the words of our other councillors. It's not much, 0.75%, but all little bits help as we move forward to try to look after our infrastructure. So I support it.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
I guess ditto. I support
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Your Worship, just the other, if I could, yes, okay, sorry.
Please.
You have two reports that predate probably 2015 or so. The fiscal review, which I know I've circulated to you in the past around different discussions, and we also have a town's task force report that was done on the gas tax formula. So those two documents might be worth revisiting. I certainly support what you're saying here. But if challenged down the road or why and this kind of stuff, those two reports are great references for you, especially the fiscal review. Speaks to the inequities of road and the challenges of infrastructure and so forth. It's a valuable report, which I think we've just sent to the Mayor of Bridgewater as well as they're discussing similar issues. So
Right.
just remind you of those reports. Thank you.
Okay.
Those are on our website?
The fiscal review, I think at one point I emailed them to you. Yes, so I'll make sure I recirculate them so that they're fresh.
So did you want to look at those reports before a letter is sent?
That certainly wasn't my argument.
No.
If you want to do that, I think the spirit of what you're trying to do is.
Yep, yep. And the other thing as well is that, you know, when you read this, there's no description of who gets how much. You know, is it going to be by our yeah. so So have you guys seen this at? No?
We might see next month. That depends on
Okay.
the timely issue, but
All right. So I'll start the bones of a letter, and then we'll make a decision at council.
Yeah, I think they're just asking for us for support, and if they get enough support, they'll take it to NSFM.
yes,
I
well,
think that's a good idea.
Okay. So do you want? Well, I'm not going to do it tonight.
no, but just
No. I'm not writing a letter tonight. Sorry, Eric. Yeah. All right, so we're saying we'll write a letter of support. Okay, thank you. Okay, next, where are we? New business. Kentville Business Community, do we need a biological break? How long our machine's not going to fall off the edge, is it?
2 hours and 47 minutes.
Okay. Okay, moving on, new business, Kentville Business Community Town Square proposal. We've just heard from KBC. CEO, could we get you to clarify the in code or not in code of this structure that we have out there that we've been plugging plugs into for quite a while?
Yeah, it sounds like something sketchy over there. So I referred to the right-hand person of our electrician, and I was informed that we have a panel that meets the code, and then whether it was the Devil's Half Acre or it was the Multicultural Fair, we added a second panel or board of plugs to try to accommodate the needs of that event. So that is we'll say the plug that's not weatherproof, although it is underneath the canopy and so forth. So no, we're satisfied with our compliance, but it should be improved. That second panel should be improved. So if that helps to answer the question.
It does.
We're safe and secure. But
okay, I don't feel so bad anymore that we've had sketchy electrical outlets out there.
No.
So the other question, 4,500. Is that reasonable?
So just for clarification, because I've heard this a little bit in the community, and I believe it was under this council. Yes, it was. KBC's funding. We have the core 50-some thousand, and then we have the second, and then we have the first 25,000 for the facade, and that's what we would call the core 87,000, whatever it is. And at the time that you were elected, we had this additional 25,000 that we would take from operating reserves when and if they came to us. So there was some predictability that they were going to come to us because of the popularity of the facade. So we said we need to collect the full amount, including both facades, we'll say, instead of withdrawing from operating reserves, because there's this formula. We need a little bit of money from the business community, the commercial taxpayer, the residential taxpayer, and the folks out in the business part. So we do have the total amount of the levy at the 113, whatever that amount is. So we do have it. Now, Deb would have it earmarked as economic development levy, so I would say you do have the financial capacity within what we collected to forward this to them. You're also, at this time, projecting a surplus. So it doesn't always mean because you can afford it, you should pay it out, but I would say with respect to the economic levy that we've collected, there is capacity to support this request financially. It is there if you want. Now their argument is a little bit off base when they say, well, if we don't use it, we'll lose it. Well, it just stays in our coffers. We could choose to earmark it as operating reserve for KBC. There's all kinds of things we can do with that. But generally, I think our attitude from a fiscal point of view, in real simple terms, is we budget for what we need and we use it if we need it, versus some other analogy that you better spend it. It doesn't happen. We don't have March Madness. I don't suggest that this is March Madness, but you do have the capacity if you choose to support this request. Okay.
So why would we give them the money so they could pay our electrician to fix our infrastructure?
Potato.
Okay.
They could easily be requesting that we spend some of that economic development levy to do this. It's
right.
Potato, whatever you decide, if you decide to support it.
Okay. Councillor, our Deputy Mayor, please.
Actually, CEO Phillips answered that, because I said essentially if they don't spend their entire budget, then it just goes back in our operating.
Yep.
Back at our, yeah, of course. Okay.
If I might, Your Worship.
Certainly.
Just on your last point, if council's prepared to spend the money, I would recommend that the town do this, because it is town infrastructure, and then the town can hold the contractor to account if there's a problem. If KBC does it, then you're one step removed, and it's your infrastructure. So that would, from a legal perspective, it'd be a lot cleaner for the town to take ownership of this.
So do we need a motion for the town to do this, using their money?
It's not
their money. It's not their money, it's our money. It's just that we haven't handed it to them.
direction, one way or the other.
So is that a motion or just direction that we want this to happen? And
So I
want-
would say it's outside of our scheduled budget process and expectation, even though the funds are there, you would give me direction by motion.
Okay. Sue. Counselor Andrew.
I mean, something was pointed out to us that is, I think, fairly important. It was a great observation from a group that's engaged in some of these events, and you know, it's probably worthwhile just maybe a tip of the hat or a bit of a thank you for them for pointing it out. You know, they did come in here, and to me, the rationale for why they would be the ones to be the contractor, if you will, didn't make any sense. But nonetheless, they did point out something important, and it's going to help us with our capacity to have great events. And so I think it's important maybe that we make sure that we let them know we appreciate what they pointed out to us.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. So just so I'm clear, the solicitor said basically that we pay for it as it's our infrastructure. And I also think, you know, they've brought this to light. This is to benefit one or two things that they do. This could be a huge benefit to the town for the events and future events that they want to host. And I think we should do this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I mean, I certainly echo what Councillor Andrews said in terms of thanking them for bringing it to our attention, but I also think that there are a number of other things that are going to come up in the budget, and it should go in with our budget discussions and have it as a line item, and if we decide that it's something that we want to do, then we move forward with it. But it could form part of those budget discussions.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Well, the way I look at it is the funds are there, and this is something that we would use during Apple Blossom probably, and other events. So I don't think that we need to wait for our budget deliberations. I think that since the money is there and they've pointed this out to us, and it's a benefit to all groups, I think this is something we need to do.
Thank you. Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. I concur with Councillor Maxwell. In my opinion, it's a time issue. I'm not prepared to wait to get this done in June or July when we're wrapping up budget. The farmers market would benefit, Apple Blossom. There's a committee right now looking at events for Town Square. Let's not impact their energy by debating a $7,000 or $8,000 line item in the month of May. If we can do it now, let's do it now. And
Okay.
it is our infrastructure, so I think we should do it, certainly, as the solicitor said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pulsford.
And I concur with Councillor Bolland as well. It's just, let's do it and get it
Okay.
done.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So how did they come about this? Like, what happened that they realized that it wasn't compliant? Or, like, was anybody else complaining about it or anything?
I think it's my understanding at their board meeting, one of their subcommittees, that, they're doing their event planning for the year, and they're
Okay.
talking about infrastructure versus this red light danger.
Okay.
It wasn't that.
No.
It was, what do we
Okay.
need to support what we're doing?
The activities in the summer?
Right.
Okay.
This-
Yeah.
You're talking about the code issues. That was, I think they had a meeting with but as for the other issues, there's just not enough to service the number of vendors, food vendors that wanted to be there. So we were running an extension cord from underneath the thing to the big electrical box behind Tim Hortons. And the further away from the source you get, the less the power is. And so we kept losing several trays and stuff like that. And not only is it a pain for the vendors, but when you look at it from a food handling point of, right, if you don't have the proper temperatures, then that could be an issue as well.
So I've drafted a motion here. Direct the CAO to proceed with upgrade of the electrical outlet service in Center Square using 2018-2019 budget.
Worship, you might add saying, and further send a letter of thank you to KBC representatives for
Okay.
something like that.
Do you want that in the motion? Does that have to be in the motion, the letter? Okay, I'll put a note and letter.
To be included
We have it's been moved and seconded that council advisory, can we direct you or does it still have to go to council?
No, you can just direct me.
Okay. That council advisory direct the CAO to proceed with upgrade of the electrical outlet service in the center square using 2018-2019 budget. Is there any further discussion? You ready for the question? That we direct the CAO to proceed with upgrade of the electrical outlet service in center square using 2018-2019 budget. All. No, that's okay. It's okay, you can keep changing your mind while we're waiting. Until we close it, you can just keep toggling and see what happens.
What I was doing.
Okay, voting is now open.
Voting is now.
Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, CAO 2019-2020 Regional Sewer Operating and Capital Budget Approval.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, I took the liberty of submitting this. You can certainly endorse it one way or the other or make an amendment. So the origins of this, of course, Kings Regional Sewer Committee exists to provide governance and oversight for the operation of the regional sanitary sewer treatment plant in Uminus. Annually, the sewer treatment plant partners review both operating and capital budgets. The committee consists of members of the County of Kings, Kentville, Village of Uminus, and PepsiCo/Frito-Lay, who receive a budget from staff, review it, and then approve it and forward it to each party for their approval. The budget before you today was approved by the committee and is forwarded to council for your consideration. I would also add to this that the technical committee met in advance of the Regional Sewer Committee and approved this budget. The budget looks like, overall, it's a $1.4 million operation. The town of Kentville's funding on the operating side would be about $727,000, which represents 49.6% of that operation. And of course, the balance of partners make up the difference of $739,000. The overall capital this year is scheduled for $1.6 million. And I think that is primarily made up of reserves. There's no note here of the town's share of that. So the budgets are there for your review, and certainly Deputy Mayor and myself could comment on those if you have questions around it. But we are asking you to consider the approval of those two budgets, and they are listed there. Motion to Town Council to approve the Kings Regional Sanitary Sewer 2019-20 operating budget for $1,466,000 as presented. And the second recommendation is to approve the Kings Regional Sanitary Sewer 2019-20 capital budget for $1,625,000 as presented.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll do first the operating budget. So we have a recommendation that Council Advisory recommend the 2019-2020 Regional Sewer Operating Budget of $1,466,000, of which $727,000 is the Kentville share, to be approved at the March 25th, 2019 Council meeting. Is there any discussion, Councillor Maxwell?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I maybe should know this, but do we have more sewer than the other partners? Is that why because other partners, is not a lot off our cost, and there are several other partners, so I'm just kind of wondering.
I'll refer to our technical representative.
It's really based on usage.
Yeah, it is.
Like-
Volume and BOD.
So we have more sewer. We have more going into it than.
Yes.
Yeah.
volume and concentration. And the biggest contributors
Yeah, okay.
is more or less the folks in the business part.
Yeah, good.
Councillor Gerard?
No, that was my question as well.
Okay, very good.
So, slow down.
All right. All right. So are you ready for the question? The question is on a recommendation of the 2019-2020 regional sewer operating budget of $1,466,000, of which $727,000 is Kentville's share, to be approved at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And the second motion with regards to this is a recommendation that Council Advisory recommend the 2019-2020 regional sewer capital budget of $1,625,000 to be approved at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Now, there is no share on that one.
I'm confident that that's,
It's mostly made up of reserves.
Okay.
yeah, I'm looking over here. Yeah.
Okay. If I could have, thank you. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Oh,
I just have a quick question
Go ahead,
about
please.
the infrastructure that we have. We own that infrastructure that we use, and when we do have an issue, do we pay for it? Does it come out of a unified budget, for lack of a better term?
So I need to address also the funding, but I'll answer your question first. The regional has its own line, and it, for the most part, we'll say goes from Colebrook to New Minas, and the other side of New Minas, Greenwich, somewhere, so it stops. That main line goes through our town, like the road, I guess. We have our own infrastructure that ties into that.
Yep.
But the regional sewer is infrastructure owned by the county. So when something happens to that infrastructure on the operating side or on the capital side, we pay proportionate to our share. So for the most part, it's 50%, as we noted. So on the screen, you can't see it right now because Jennifer has that. This year's 1.6 million is supported by 875,000 from reserves and 750 from long-term debt. But that long-term debt won't come on until next year from an operating point of view, it goes, okay? So that's the composition. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to recommend the 2019-2020 regional sewer capital budget of $1,625,000 to be approved at the March 25th, 2019 council meeting. Motion, the thing is open. I'm the only one who hasn't voted. I'm still talking. Voting is closed. And again, unanimously. Thank you. Motion is carried.
Can I just ask you for the movers and the seconders?
Kate and Craig.
So for capital, it was,
For, yeah, and for operating, it was Kate and Eric. All right, that is all of our new business. The floor is now open for public comments. Anyone wishing to make comments? You have 10 minutes. Please state your name, address, and subject matter. All right, Irene, thank you. All right, we have in-camera business, so the council has confidential land and legal business, which must be conducted in a closed session. We require a motion to go into a closed session to discuss both agenda items. There will not be any recommendations coming from this discussion, and we will not be returning to Facebook Live upon completion of the presentation. If I could have a motion, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the meeting move into a closed session. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you.